All right, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family. Welcome to another great Sunday evening for another Real Talk episode with Ian and Ian. And we're just really excited today because it's always a pleasure, that three past students of the great noble institution, St. Elizabeth Technical High School, we could come together. We are currently in the US, but we could tell you that all the way from Florida, past through North Carolina, down to New York. So we just want to say big up to all the viewers over in New York, Florida, and especially in Jamaica. We just want to welcome you for joining, and we promise that we have a nice entertainment, educated, inspirational message to this Sunday. So before I'll say any further word, I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Ian Thomas, the health and wellness specialist.
All right, thank you, Ian. And this evening again, I say it's a pleasure, man, to be on here. Earlier we had a doctor on, and that was phenomenal. To have a doctor on here would have enlightened us with so much information with regards to healthcare, and especially in this time. And he even went on to talk about mental illness, the mind, the mindset. But tonight we have another great presenter for you guys, no other than Dr. Cecil D. Wright. All right. And this is a man who would have Ian write about the American dream. And I know everybody want to hear more about the American dream. And
Yeah.
for a man to write a little book about the American dream, that means we're up for a big one tonight. So guys, stay tuned and just wait up and get ready to live your American dream when we finish talking to Dr. Cecil Wright. Dr. Cecil Wright, we just want to welcome you to this platform. Thank you for taking out of your busy schedule. You could have been doing any other thing you wish, but tonight you choose to be here with Ian and Ian. We don't know how long this program go, but as God will lead us, we will just continue to educate and inspire individual. And we could not be more pleased to bring somebody like you on, who is out there empowering the youth, with your message, and you've been an educator and so much more. We're gonna just let you tell the people who is Dr. Cecil Wright. Ian is gonna say a word of prayer. So it's just gonna be an amazing afternoon, man. So welcome, Dr. Wright.
Yes, thank you, Ian and Ian. I know that I've watched your show a couple of times, well, and just being an alumnus from STETHS myself, very familiar with you guys, and I feel more honored to be around you guys because you guys are the Olympian and the great cricketers and the great famous people of the world. So I'm just humbled to be on the show with you guys.
All right, guys. Well, that's the one thing about going to STETS, St. Elizabeth Technical High School. We could say that you as a former deputy head boy, I'm a multiple sport guy, and Ian is educator, sports guy. Is right there in between until his mother let him know that he need to take his book serious. and, and I know plenty of us get that counseling from the parents. Be like, guys, we're spending all this money, but before we get into any further discussion, we're gonna say a quick word of prayer because we know that the Lord is going to guide us tonight and just going to use us. So let's go to the word in prayer. Heavenly Father, God Jesus, we thank you so much to give us this opportunity tonight just to sit and talk and just to go back to our past, dear God, and also to look ahead to our future. We thank you for guiding us, protecting us, and keeping us, dear God. We're praying that we may continue to, you know, anyone that might listen to this program, God, that hopefully they might get a good message out of it, dear God. So right now we're asking your presence to step right now in this program with Ian and Ian, dear God. And I want your Holy Spirit, dear God, to guide us, dear God. So with all those requests, dear God, I know that you're present, and I know can't wait for what you have in store for us. And we're coming to you in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So Dr. Wright. I don't know. I have for some reason the word Cornwall keep coming up in my head, so I need to get that out my head. But we're just gonna, I said, just happy to welcome you. We got a lot to talk about tonight because you have been an educator and you have been an author, and you're a motivation speaker also, and you're just a mentor too. So so we just have so much information that we're gonna just get right into it. So as usual for me, we all know that you're from one of the best parish in Jamaica, St. Elizabeth. So we're gonna get down a little detail for you just to go back to the grassroots, just to tell us where Dr. Cecile from. So, all right, Doc. So tell us the truth.
So yeah, so I am from St. Elizabeth. From a little place. Well, let me not say a little place. Stop saying that. I'm from a place called Brucefield, and most of you might never have heard of Brucefield before. But Brucefield, if you're familiar with St. Elizabeth, you might probably have heard about the famous Barber Hall, or you might hear about Vineyard is where JB comes from. So you might hear about Vineyard, Barber Hall, but Brucefield, this little small community that lies between Barber Hall and Arlington. And I can tell you that even going back even the 80s when I was attending STETHS, and early 80s into the 90s attending STETHS, Brucefield, hardly anyone knew about Brucefield. But it's country. It's country. We have light, water, and road now, so that makes a lot of difference. But it's a community, a farming community, where people tend to do a lot of cattle rearing and crops and so forth to kind of survive. But it's on the south side, still the most beautiful place, still the place where I found the most joy going back to. If you go back home, and my tendencies when I go back home is that I have to sleep in my room that I grew up in. That is kind of that's it give me pleasure to go back and sleep in there, even though I could have slept anywhere else. But I tend to want to go back there and just hear the rain pour and just enjoy that.
All right, excellent, guys. So from Brucefield, St. Elizabeth, through Santa Cruz. So we're gonna hear how it all started to you to get to Santa Cruz. So just tell us a little bit about how did you end up at STETHS, and why did you choose STETHS? I know you probably could have gone to other schools, but let us know how this mystery started.
I think I don't think I chose STETHS. I think STETHS chose me, and that's the way I view it, because when I went to live in Brucefield, I attended Mountainside Primary School, and everybody took the common entrance to go to all these schools. And fortunately, I didn't get to go to the school on the hill, which I won't mention their name. I got to go to school on the hill, but I got into STETHS, and so and then when I got into STETHS, for me it was like I used to be compared all the time when I was growing up in my mind with my sister and I. People always compare the two, and she went to the other school on the hill, the female school is called Hampton. I'll save my jokes about that for another time. But she went to a school called Hampton, and I went to STETHS. And I can tell you, getting to STETHS for me was a life changer, because they was the one who opened their arms, and I felt at home once I got there. Beside the ragging that take place, but everything else at STETHS, once I entered the gates at STETHS, I knew I was onto something great.
All right, awesome. So we're so happy that you didn't choose the school on the hill. And you choose this
Yeah.
the school on the on the flat down there at the bottom in the gully.
They're always gonna once starting at the bottom is always it started from the bottom. Now we're here, so no issue starting from the bottom, man.
All right, man. This year's going too good. So Ian, come on, get
Yeah,
over
yeah,
to you.
yeah. I'm happy that he started the heat, man. Yeah. We went up on the hill. It will be too cold. You'll have to pull for his sweater. It's another challenge.
Right.
So we're happy that he went to the flat there, the plain of St. Elizabeth right there in the middle there, Santa Cruz. I say it's central to a lot of things, But where I want to start, Dr. Cecil, is that journey to STETHS. How challenging was it to make it out of that little community that you described, which is no longer, now that you're out and writing books and all, people know about Brucefield. But how challenging was it back then as a student to make it into Santa Cruz for school and not to be late? Or did you have some late behind you?
Well, you know what? I wasn't late, but I can tell you one thing. It was challenging. In 2008, 2010, I was in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, and we went flew into London and then head into Nairobi and took a small plane into Banga. When I got to Nairobi, it was night, so I couldn't get a chance to do what I wanted to do. But when I got into Banga, I stooped down and I literally touched a goat in my hand, and I say to myself, how did a boy from Brucefield, a country boy from Brucefield, who grew up starting to study with buckle torch. I mean, home sweet home was what I used when I lived in Brucefield as my light. The kerosene oil. I remember we had to go and get kerosene oil out of the one shop that was a mile out to come back to my house to study. And I remember in Banga and said to myself, how did a boy from Brucefield that started with buckle torch is now in the motherland called in the continent of Africa, right? And the country called Kenya in a remote place called Banga, standing there, known and everyone calling you doctor. So that journey for me, that was an epiphany. I bring you there just to bring you back, because what happened, it told me exactly how far. But I can tell you what happened. I believe that even though the journey to STETHS and the journey along the way was difficult, why I'm so focused on mentoring and supporting is that I have a lot of people. I had a mother who wouldn't quit on me. I had a bunch of, uncles and friends. And then, when you're poor, there's one thing you always know about is church. And I think that, I go to church, and I used to go to church every Sunday morning, have to walk, like 2 miles to go to Salvation Army Church, right? And we go up to Salvation Army Church, and everybody in their white frock and them big S's on them shoulder, and them and not the tambourine, and you have to go up and see your Sunday school verses, and you have to get a chance, and your lead testimony and those sort of things. All of a sudden, you kind of realize that you start to develop some skills by going to church and you have elsewhere. So I get those skills, and then as you get those off, all of a sudden, the STETHS entrance came along, you pass the STETHS entrance, and then you have to, figure out, your parents have to figure out how to get you to STETHS, and I have to go to early morning and walk before there to go out the road, catch a bus called Presser. And, the Rasta man driving a bus, if you remember that bus, is a big bus called Folcub, right? The bus name was Folcub. Okay, shaped like a Folcub. And you get out there, and we got on Folcub, and the Rasta man named Presser, who I think is in the US here now, drove us on the bus called Folcub every morning. And you have to, you in your first couple of months going there, you're a rookie, so you sit up front. But as the years go by and you start get a white shirt and you start get promoted, you go to the back of the bus. You understand? Because now you're a prefect and you're a deputy head boy. You cannot help to start on the show. But it was not easy journey. I can tell you one thing that I love to tell people all the time, that, my journey to STETHS, I am successful because there's a lot of people who's pushing me. And when I look back at the number of hands that fed me, the number of minds that motivated me, and the number of people that wrapped their arms around me on my way to STETHS, I cannot imagine the number of people did that. I can imagine everyone who are, my 7 aunts, all had something to do with it. I've lived at all of my uncles' houses. You know what I mean? I've lived off all my in-laws' houses. So everything we had to do folks did for me to get through STETS. So it wasn't a single journey. And when folks hear me so excited all the time about giving back and mentoring, I love doing that. Simple because there were people who had to push me to get where I had to go. So my journey, it's a tough one, but yeah, I can tell you one thing. I would never in 100 years regret the path I took to get to STETS and the things that I learned along the way. Because I think all of those steps, whether it's on the presser bus going to school or the times when, my mother had to say that, okay, well, you have to tell Mr. Nema that own presser bus that we can't pay the bus fee, this month. They get the bus fee next month. Or she might say, this week you won't have enough to buy X amount of food for why I go to school this week at Tuck Shop, right? I mean, all of those balancing act was special, and those act taught me a lot of things along the way.
Great, great. So you know what? I won't let you go any further without giving us a quick minute, who mommy is to you, because we already hear mommy coming in the picture, the early mentor, your early role model. Want to know that if mommy was probably like my mother who used to make drops and grate cake, or she own a little shop around the corner, because I know it's always tight for them, crunch time for them to really let you go to high school. Because, I have a father who, he didn't go to high school or even any further, because mother had to choose who go out and who stay in. And, so could you just give us a little of the family background right there?
Yeah, so I can tell you this. So my mother, my mother's my hero. So my mom have 12 of us, my brother and I. My brother also went to STETS. His name is Mark Anthony. I love to say he's the handsome one. He's the handsome one with the muscles, and he's my mother's favorite child. Right? Just know that. I have nothing to do with it. But my mom is special because here's what happened. Ian. I remember, when I was growing up, my mom had to take care of us. And when my mother first opportunity came along, she got a chance to go abroad and in those early days, and she went to Canada. And I remember hearing the story that I had asthma and stutter and have a speech impediment. So, with all measures, I was not destined to be anything. If you look at all the calculation, if somebody who have asthma, your stomach, right? And they nickname you Papa. So that is 3 negative. Asthma, you can't breathe. Stomach, that means you have a speech impediment. They name you Papa, which means poor. The only thing happened, the only thing destined for you to do is to fail. But my mother didn't believe in that. My mother definitely believed in that. I remember my mother was living in Canada, and somebody said that for a short while, and I got sick. And the lady didn't wait. The lady could have stayed there like everybody else and try to make her way. She packed her bag and come back home before anything, right? And come back home. And for her, for all her life, she's always been a helper, cleaning people house, living helper, staying in people, taking care of their children, so she could send her child to school, right? And so my mother's everything to me, and why she's so special to me, to be honest with you, is I can say this. I remember when I got left STETS and I got my first job. I remember going to my mother, and she was still a helper. When I finished STETS, my mother was still a helper working for someone at the house. I remember going to her and said, "That's it. You don't have to work anymore." When I got my first job at the STETS was at Workers Bank. And I said to her, "You got to stop." Because my mother had to clean people's houses, make touch, those touch mats. You guys are probably young guys and about those things, but those mats where people make the fan you have to sell, make mats, sell them to other people, to go sell them in Kingston. That's what they did for a living to send me to school. So, so I know what she put into us. I know how hard she had to work. I know, I know that she was doing every possible thing. And that is why she means so much to me. So I can tell you this. I still have issues with her, though. She lives with me now. The issue is she thinks she's my boss. And she don't realize, what she don't get is that I'm the one that owns the house, right? I pay the mortgage. I pay the bills, right? Since my mother moved, she never worked, but she think that I report to her. And that's an issue, a different story. But I remember tell you one thing. My mom have been in the US with me now for 20 plus years. Never had to work. And I said to myself, my mother is not going to go to coal and have to work anything because she has done enough for me throughout my life. So, and I can tell you, folks who know me and know my dad, my dad is have my name, Cecil Wright, and he's a good man. He's a good man. He did what dad did in those days. Go forth and multiply, right? Yeah, that's what he did. He go forth and he multiply, and he has a lot of us, and some of us are doing extremely well. But I can tell you one thing for sure is that at the end of the day, when you have a strong mother, and doesn't matter what situation might be, if you just hold on, if you just stay focused, if you just keep on pumping in your child and believe in them, somewhere along the line, they will get it.
All right. Thank you for that. And thank you for going so much in depth. Already we see Nardia here. Whitey, I'm so inspired by your story. And that is very, very, very good. And that's the reason why we bring on people like you who have come up from grassroots and still been able, with all the challenges, you've been able to make it. And I'm going to dig deep into your story now. Because when we talk about challenges, the challenges getting to school, all that stuff. But you just mentioned that you had asthma, you were stammer, and basically them label you a label that I don't want to repeat it, but obviously with all of those, it looked like for you to make it, your why had to be greater than anybody else. I would like to know how you overcome that stammering, which I know stammering is serious. So I want to know how you overcome that stammering, and what was your why that you had to make it. You weren't gonna stop at anything basically, because I've seen
Yeah,
your progress.
yeah, you know what? I think a couple of things. I'll take the first part of it. I stutter. I still do. I still have a speech impediment, but here's what I know, Ian, is that I'm willing to work harder and longer than most people would ever imagine of. So when you're sleeping, I'm working. Right? That's what you should know. Right? When you are probably chilling and doing other things, I'm investing time and energy and even money into making myself better. So, for instance, is that my speech impediment has been an issue all my life. So, how I overcome that? I over prepare. I'm always preparing. I'm always reading more. I'm always the more you read, the better choices you have for words. In case there's a word that's have an issue with, I change that word quickly because it might be difficult for me to pronounce. But I think the early stage of my life where I started to overcome some challenge I have was when I went to STETHS. So when I went to STETHS, for some reason, I remember I was in 7F. I think it was 7F. And 7F might be 7F. I'm in 7F. And we had a Spanish teacher. I don't remember her name. I think it was probably Miss Sanchez. If anybody's at the chat, remember it, and they remember the Spanish name, might be Miss Sanchez was her name.
I know there was a Miss Chung. It's not Miss Chung, huh?
I think for some reason, I think it was her name was Sanchez.
Okay.
But she asked a question, and the question she asked was about cows. And I said cow don't have an S on it. So that question about cow or cattle, I should say. And somewhere along the line, I gave the answer. And she said to me, "Oh my God, you are so smart." To be honest with you, that was the first time I ever heard the word Cecil and smart in the same line. Because growing up with a speech impediment that I had and all the challenges that I faced, I was the one that most people in my family was always concerned about in terms of health wise and making sure that you stay healthy, but also making sure that folks don't take disadvantage of me. So I was always this protective shell. But in terms of overcoming my challenges, in terms of speaking, is that I start gaining small confidence by what people say to me. And then I look around me and I would see people who from other neighborhoods who are working in banks or other neighborhoods who are driving better cars or medical doctors or professors or other things. And I always say to myself, why can't I be like them? And I remember growing up and said to my mom, you don't have to worry because I'm not gonna stop until I make you proud. So my why has always been not to compare myself, but to know that there's a space out there that I can fill. So I work as hard as I can just to make sure that I could overcome those things. So, so the speech thing, is just preparing. It's just being prepared, working harder, studying longer, really helped me with the way I speak and also helped me to overcome my fear of speaking.
Thank you very much. I'll just turn it over to Ian, 'cause I know he has some burning question for you tonight, man. So be prepared.
All right, man. So I'm gonna, I'm still down there in St. Elizabeth right now, so I'm gonna, bring you back down. So, but this is a question from me. So, Dr. Wright, let the fans know how much pair of shoes did you have when you was going to STETHS?
That's an easy question, man. Easy question. You have one pair of shoes all school year that you have to wear. You understand? And sneakers. I don't know about sneakers stuff. I remember my first pair of sneakers I got was when JB, when Junior Bennett and Dr. Bennett would come and hand out sneakers. And so if you met the squad, you get a pair of shoes. You understand? That's the first pair of I think it was Puma at the time too that we had. And that was the first pair of sneakers I had, one pair of shoes. And to be honest with you, I remember my uncle who raised us, and this is a true story. He has a friend, a good friend of mine, still named VJ, still as a mentor. And VJ would come every Christmas with a big car trunk, right? And he would open the car trunk and he'd go in the car trunk and pick out one pair of shoes. He just sell shoes. And that one pair of shoes you have, you have a Sunday shoes, that you wear go school, where you wear go church on Sunday. You know that already. You normally, depending on the service, you walk out the road first and you put it on, because if you put it on for walk out of the road, it's still real bad. So you kind of put on, see, sometimes you roll your pants foot up and you walk with your shoes in your hand till you reach out the road. And then you wash off the pipe and you put your socks back on now and you put it on, your head up the road because you're straight. Now you still look sharp, but if you walk with the shoes go all the way out, it get messy up. So you have the church shoes, you have the school shoes, right? And those are the two pair of shoes that you wear. And all people talk about slippers and yard shoes. We never have those things. When you go tie goat out of morning time, you sometimes get a one little kasha maka. You have to come back and take that out and keep moving. But not having a pair of shoes growing up or multiple shoes didn't define who we were, didn't define what we want to be, didn't define our dreams. I remember my cousin and I he would play cop, and he's still one of the top detective right on Jamaica. And we used to play cop, and I used to play banker and businessman and read cowboy book. And I'm thinking about all the things that I'm doing now, how I thought and dreamt of those things when I was a boy growing up back in the days.
All right, man. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for that. So I want to get into a little bit now. I know we're probably going to have some of your old schoolmates. So just give us a shout out and call, as much name as you possibly can. Some of your peers while you was in school that you basically develop a brother and sisterly love.
Oh man. Listen, man. There's so much love, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. I can tell you one thing, man. I have so much respect for quite a few people, man, that I went to school with, and I can rattle a few off in my head. Well, first of all, let's start with my love for the class of 1990. You know what I'm saying? We have all of from Belinda and Elaine and Ruddy and Conroy and Patrice and Nadine and Tanya and Fiona and Kay Dean and you realize I'm calling a lot of female names, but trust me, there's a whole lot of guys. Talk about Kurt Dockery that passed away. Lisa. Talk about folks like Steven that also passed away. Talking about a coach like JB. So I've tons and tons of people. Tanya. Tanya Dormant. A lot of people. And be honest with you, now in my older days, right? Career, older people now. I go back and I look now and realize how treasured those friendships are, and how much those folks now are still the same people you rub shoulders with back in the days are just right there in your corner, just supporting you. I happen now to serve on the alumni board and the alumni executive board. With Henry Roden, and even folks who I weren't so familiar with then, who I serve with now. It's a really tight bond, man. This thing is serious. It's the next level stuff.
All right, amen for that. So you know we can't leave out the principal and the educators, the teachers and all that. So we gotta give let us know who was the principal while you was at STETHS, and you know, name a few of your teachers that was an early positive influence for you while you was at STETHS.
I left out one person at STETHS side. One of the guys that always inspired me when I was at STETHS, quietly, is Gary Samuels. You guys know Gary, right?
Yeah.
And in those days, Gary was before my days, prior to me. Gary, I think it was like 88, 89 in those days, or a little before that. And Gary was, I think, student president at the time, student body president. And another guy also who give me a hard time back in the days too was Sylvester Earle. He's a pilot now, and and Derek Brown. Those guys, those are. And if you play cricket, you have the old crew. You have Ticks and you have Clive Legister, and I were buddies back in those days. So the crew run deep. But in terms of educators, my principal was S.U. Watson. Right, we call him Shaka Zulu.
All right.
That the man is a real gun. You understand me? And then the man come on the Shaka system, say the first time Shaka was introduced, there was a little bit of a discrepancy. The principal before, which before Shaka was doing what he could, but when Shaka came, the first day Shaka come to the auditorium and walked inside the auditorium, everybody stand up in there and introduce him. His first word was, "I'm gonna shock you." Right, that was his word. So we call him Shaka Zulu. But Mr. Watson, as an educator and a principal, has allowed the profile of STETHS and the academic portion of who we are, discipline wise, to raise to a next level. So he really set the stage for that for us. And then the other principals, that a couple of folks that really stood out to me was Mrs. Samuda. Mr. Linton, the vice principal, Rupert Linton, I consider him one of the greatest academias in the world. He's a very studious man who have always spent a lot of time ensuring that the quality of the education that we got at STETHS, also ensuring that overall on the academic, I think Mr. Watson was a disciplined man, right? And I think Mr. Linton was the academia that held all of that together. So I think, between those two at the head of the hem, really allowed us to really stabilize ourselves. But I had a lot of great teachers, man. From Samuda. I had a bunch of I don't remember. Listen, come on, man. This is like 30 years ago. I don't remember all the names now.
Yeah,
but,
no, I understand.
Trust me.
I understand. You definitely you got a lot of a pass right there, because I understand that it's a long time. So
it's a long time.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get a bonus question in. We're gonna come back and you let us know. What was your favorite subject at STETHS and why was that?
Oh, favorite subject at STETHS was probably mathematics. Okay. My first at STETHS, and mathematics, and probably land survey. In those days, we're told that there was only 2 land surveyors across the entire country. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to become land surveyors, and that was a big dream. Become a land surveyor. Could always make money because land, need to be surveyed. But my favorite subject was mathematics, and actually, a group of us, I think Ruddy and Miller, myself, probably Conroy, Daly, and I think Elaine Campbell, we took math and English from 10th grade at the time, early, 1 year before we should have, because we wanted to not prove anything, but wanted to get the pressure off the final year, and then I think all of us got 1 or 2 in those subjects very early.
Okay. So I know I'm supposed to put you over to Ian now, but I'm gonna ask you one more question, because this one I don't want to forget it. When you was at STETHS at the time, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up? I know a lot of people say things, and I'm curious to know what you'd want to be with.
You know what? I've always still, wanted to be one thing, in which is crazy, gonna shock you. And this, I'm saying this and publicly, probably second time in an interview the last couple of years. I've always wanted to be the Prime Minister of Jamaica. That's it. Nothing else. That's always been my dream. And I think my mother has talked me out of that dream. So I'm gonna probably I tell her, you know, if you have to settle for two things, either prime minister, preacher, policeman, or professor. And I think the professional role might be where I might end up in academia. But I always wanted to be, because what people don't know is that one of the first prime minister of Jamaica, which is Donald Sangster, his house actually where he grew up in back in those days. You know, he was prime minister for a short time. Sangster. His house is actually about 2 miles from my house. There's a little house in the common where he grew up. And the story goes, you know, how he became prime minister of Jamaica and then he was poisoned after that. But I've always known and drive past there, and I always say to folks, why can't there be two prime ministers out of St. Elizabeth? So that was always my dream. I remember a couple of years ago, Ian Bowen that passed away had reached out to me for an interview, and he died before it happened. I were in the works of setting up that interview with him. And one of the things that was fascinating was that trajectory of trying to make that your goal to get into politics and see if there's a way out. So that was my dream to be, you know, that was my focus.
All right, Mr. Prime Minister, over to you, Ian.
All right, Dr. Cecil Wright. I don't know why you make your bio so long, you know, so you know I'm going to have to dig deep into it. And one part of your bio I cannot leave hanging at all is cricket. I'm happy that Ian didn't dibble into the cricket side, because I was like, man, you better hold your question, Ian. So I'm happy you didn't get into the cricket question. So really, you know, I see where you did debate and you also take part in cricket, but mostly I'm going to ask you how that was balanced. But really, I want to ask you about your cricket at STETHS and how did it all started?
Well, I think when I was at Montessori Primary, first I played a bit of cricket there, primary cricket, and then when I went to STETHS, I tried out with Junior Bennett. At the time, the other guy I went to school with, most folks don't know, is Clive Legister, who is a coach for the cricket at STETHS for a couple of years. Well, we went to school together, Montessori Primary, and then we went to Santa Cruz, then we went to STETHS together. And I think for me, when I started off in cricket, I went to try out as a medium bowler and a batsman. So I'm multifaceted. So I obviously, Clive was a pace bowler at the time. Tix was a left-hand spin bowler. We got Kurt Dockery. We got Ted Roy Jones at the time. And that's why you have man like Staple was at Monroe in those days, right? So I went and I tried out and I made a team. So I actually played for STETHS when I was, I think I was deputy head boy when I was playing in my second year, because I played 2 years in a row. And, you know, I about, you know, fifth in the lineup and start a couple of games, competitive team, you know, I mean, really, you know, STETHS is a top-notch school. So, you know, I remember when STETHS actually, they picked the team to represent Jamaica. And a bunch of guys went to Trinidad and they meet Brian Lauren, and come back and said, man, this is batsman over here, this man is vicious, right? So I played in that same era when Staple and all those guys went over and started to play with Lara. But so yeah, I played, I was on the team, played a couple of matches well. Don't ask me about my scores.
No touch the stats.
No, I talk no stats. You understand me? But I normally, here's an issue with me. I normally get in, obviously, making 15, 20 runs a game. You know, that's normally, I didn't have a big score. But I think for me is that when I didn't get to go to Monroe, I remember going to Monroe in particular. I remember that game like nothing. And when JB tell me that I was on a good trajectory, you know, playing well through practice, he said, you're in the lineup for this game. You're gonna bat like number 5 or number 4 in the lineup, moving lineup, right? In the game. And went to Monroe and we're in trouble early. So, and I remember it. And I remember a medium pace bowler come down and looking nice. And when the man come down a couple of times, well, but just look really pretty, maybe like pretty, you know, like just hold him down. You understand me? Just line him and hold him down. And, you know, for about 4 balls straight, just kind of, okay, calm yourself down one at a time. I remember about I think I faced like 4 balls, but I remember one of them was a after I kind of looked pretty at him a couple of times and said, chill out. I remember him in just something short, and I went off a pull it and I eased back, right? And next time him come back, I went pretty again, and the man him say LBW. So the Monroe match, we did 0 that Monroe match. I'm gonna never forget it. I don't that match until now I'm still sorry about that match because I look good the entire game, you know. I've and I think that I face that's my shortest game ever. Face about 4 balls and end up playing 0. But I love cricket, man. But I've always also played for my community cricket, whether it's Brucefield or Barber Hall, or even when I came to the US here, I used to play for a team in the Bronx named Kings for a little bit. But again, because of my academic focus and trying to survive, balance life, I kind of put the cricket aside. But I can say, well, a good Batman, trust me.
All right. So, you being an educator, you basically, you speak highly of yourself and others. We have seen your accomplishment, we see the journey. But who I'm going to have you speak a little bit about is Junior Bennett, Coach Junior Bennett. What Junior Bennett means to St. Elizabeth Technical. I know what he means to me. But for you, could you tell me, in terms of a early man, a mentor early, how do you see Coach Junior Bennett and he as an asset there at STETHS during that time?
Well, you know what? For me, Junior is one of the gentlemen who goes down, who you revered in many ways, right? And if you think about JB and what JB has done, not only winning, because here's what happened in a lot of folks associate personal winning with success, right? And those two never normally go well together. There are a lot of folks who win and are successful athletes, but those things don't last long because they haven't really developed success. And success is really how you pass on a set of skills that other people can go forward. And I think what JB does is that JB is that person. I remember the same Monroe match. I remember when I play that match and I come back and I sit down with JB on the bench, and I told a story before. JB, remember the story. I sit down, JB, and JB's a very quiet man. I remember you just played 0. You have been batting in practice for the last 3 weeks real well, scoring 20s and 30s. Man, move you up in the lineup, you get a good start, and you go there and I try to play pretty, right? It's a play pretty. And you could have a couple of balls where I could have driven. I really could have really go for the shot, but I was trying to get my nerve out. And I come back on the bench, and JB said to me, "The game is not about cricket. Is not about defense. It's about offense." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You can stay up there, look pretty all day. It's not about how pretty you look. You could look pretty and play 0. You could play 20 balls. Your job is to go and be on the offense. And those who are on the offense always do well." So one thing JB did, he instilled in you a very quiet confidence. I don't know. I can tell you, Ian, you never hear JB raise his voice yet. You not hear JB raise his voice.
You're true about that, true.
Yeah, JB never raises his voice. So JB is this gentle giant that comes with wisdom and courage and motivates you and tell you that, listen, it's okay. Here's what I want you to do. And he's a coach, and he's a player's coach. Okay, he's gonna be with you. And here's one thing I like about JB. Not because you do well doesn't give you a free ride to slack up in other areas. So there was no free pass for you because you score 100 or you score 75 or there's no favorite when it comes to JB. It's about discipline. It's about having a set of values that he's gonna live by and hold you accountable to operate in that unit, right? And I think for me that was a lot of nurturing, a lot of the team asset I learned came out of JB camp, and also Dr. Bennett. When I go to Jamaica now, and Dr. Bennett have an office down in Black River, right? And if I can tell you right now, if I fly down go to Jamaica and take one of the boats to go up the river, and it is Dr. Bennett boat, or he's in office, and I pop in. As I walk in, it's like, hey, Seth, what's going on? Because those gentlemen have always instilled so much value into not only having you succeed as an athlete, but having you succeed as a person. And that's why I think JB early mentoring and coaching and leading and pushing and just gentle nudge to be a better person is so important to STETHS. So here's what I say, I'm going to end with this, and JB, is that I think STETHS on a whole, and everyone who passed through STETHS should understand that the fundamentals about winning has to come with where you deal with people of integrity. And JB has been one of those persons who have been a very, integrous man throughout his entire life at STETHS. And if you look at all of the caliber, not only players, but the caliber people that come out of JB camp, cricketers that I know that come out of JB camp, he's revered. If you have an event anywhere in the world, you said JB is showing up. Every cricketer that's available that went to STETHS will show up. There's every one of us have a lot to say about how JB have influenced us as a person.
All right. So with that, I just want to say something on that note. I'm gonna put back this that Mr. Henry said on the screen. JB is a real boss. And why I leave that up, I'm gonna speak a little bit about JB and myself. I remember back at STETHS, as a young youth, most time when you're young and you're not sure of the direction you really want to go as yet. And there's so much distraction. And many of us here, we can say, ladies or the girls, always be a distraction, especially when you take part in a sports at STETHS. And I would remember JB would sit and say to me, say, tall piece, you see them girls, you look over the fence, and I look in. And say, guess what? I'm telling you, you don't even worry about them out there. Got the same girls them here. If you don't take your education serious or this game serious, when you leave STETHS, you leave with nothing. The same girl's gonna move on where the pasture is greener. We all understand what that means, And he always push me, get your education and everything there. Another thing I say about the man, he's not biased. No star is in that STETHS team.
Nope.
Simple mean, I've been at STETHS and we had about 5 guys that went and represent Jamaica. From the STETHS team, while they were away, we were still winning. They went away and they came back. The week that they came back, they came early. So school was still going and all they're drawing around is their big Jamaica bag and wearing them Jamaican thing. No training for that couple days. And JB was just looking in and said, okay, I don't think no star in this.
No JB, star.
Yeah, when they come out now, man, JB said, guess what? We're winning without you guys and we're still going to continue winning. And he didn't play them.
Yep.
And guess what? He didn't have to say another word. Next training session, everybody was there. So that tells you the type of person he is. No star play in his cricket team. And right now, so that shows you how much he means to me. Right now on my head, I'm wearing a JB hat. It's a JB logo. If you look on it, and I'm going to show you something. JB tie guard. The brand is out. JB hat. JB shirt. And if a youngster need a whole cricket gear, it's in JB's name. All right? If a man want to hold a bat, no. Guess what? The great man JB have his own cricket bat. And that tell you how much he mean to me that I definitely go through and create a whole line.
Respect.
A product in respect and appreciation for JB. And I said to him, JB, anything that I sell, a part will go back to you. And a part will go to a youth who have struggled to make it to STETHS. I just struggle with even a community to go. I know how much they have done even to get people to come up by the house up, up the hill there. What they call up there, so even down a female apartment that JB get to stay. Sometimes you see a cricketer sleep overnight. So I've seen how much he have given to STETHS, and I believe that he needs to be honored in a different way. So that's what he really mean to me, Ian Thomas. And I say to this, it's like a father when I'm away from my parents,
Right.
Because I boarded at STETHS, and really JB is a big part of my upbringing. Everything that I've achieved, I remember those grassroots on that STETHS field. Ian have STETHS, part of STETHS in the background here, which I'm proud of STETHS and I'm proud of JB. So I'm just gonna turn it back over to Ian with that note.
All right. Well, I just want to say I just want to just say maximum respect also to Mr. Junior Bennett, JB. As I said, I have the privilege to go to STETS during a period that I probably work with 4 or 5 of the best coaches um, in Jamaica that really mentor, really and truly, everybody know, I'm from Montego Bay. The first time my parents dropped me off, they never come back. Never come back. My father never see me run before. You know, he heard my name on the radio, and
Wow.
and that's as far as it is. But he did support me. He did pay my boarding fee. Give him some credit. He make sure the boarding fee was paid for the 4 years. So but as I said, I want to give a shout out to JB because he was. I've liked the unity at STETS at the time. If you misbehave over here in football, don't think that you could run over there in the cricket and think that you're gonna get away. you know,
True.
so, and it's the same thing for track. It was a unity amongst the coaches that I never seen in my life. That
Right.
all department could work together. With Mr. Watson. And we all know that Mr. Watson is we already know that he like to get what he want done. He's the man in charge, and he's gonna let you know that he's the man in charge. So let's just move along now. Just gonna ask you probably one more question about STETS. Just let us know when you graduate from STETS. Let us know your accomplishment. What did you what subject did you sit, and what was the results, and what are the years did you go to STETS? Tell us the years you went to STETS.
So I want to stats 85, 85 or 86. But I left stats 1990.
Okay.
So if you're going back, it's 5 years, 7. Yeah. So
85.
I went 85. So I went to stats 85, and I finished 1990. During my time at stats, I was captain of the school debate team. I played cricket. I also, was deputy head boy, famously known as Heady. Nickname in the yearbook, judge at lunchtime, means that I don't mess with food. I don't like to be hungry. And when lunchtime come, don't talk to me. It's time to have my lunch. And after I eat, you can have a conversation. But that was my thing at STETS. So when I left STETS, I took math and English early, mentioned that to you before, and got those grade 1 and grade 2. And I think if I can remember, I took math, English, land survey, geo, chemistry, physics. Took 8 subjects. I have all 8 subjects to get STETS, and they weren't all ones. There's a couple of 2s in there, but that was really what I did. And after I left STETS, directly after I left STETS, I applied for a job at Workers Bank. Workers Saving and Loan Bank at the time in Mandeville. And I got the job there and became a bank teller. So that was how, directly out of STETS, I just went. The results probably come out like in July for the exams. And once results were out, I went in for the interview, met this bank manager, somebody referred me to her, went up there, interviewed, and she said, you can start working tomorrow. So, STETS really, really had kind of prepared me, and being the deputy head boy at the time, give me an edge up. And I don't even remember going with a resume. I think all I remember going for that interview was my subjects and a letter from Mr. Watson that you graduated and a reference. And I went up there and they gave me the job. So
all right, awesome. So during the years at STETS, what was, I want to say secret, but not it's not a secret, but what would you say were your secret to success, to be so successful while you was at STETS?
I think for me it was a group of us. Yeah, I think there was a friendly competition among the head boy, Franz Johnson, myself, Roddy and Miller, Conrad Daly, Elaine, Belinda, Leota Gale, There's a friendly competition. The competition was so much. So that's why we even took math and English early, because and I still have a friend, and friends know this publicly and privately that he caused some serious issues. So Franz was the physics guy. And so when we get exams at STETHS, if you get more in math or land survey than I, right? Math was really thing. Geo was my thing. If you get more on a geo test than me, I'm gonna talk to you for this. I'm a friend. Don't talk to me because you're not supposed to get higher than me. So I think the secret for success for us was a strong networking. We wanted to compete. We wanted to be the best. And I think that coupled with the fact that we had a few people around us that was pushing us. We had a few teachers that was really, really hard on us. I think that kind of drive and passion, really propels us. And then the other thing also, too, beside the strong competition, I think, for the guys, we always believe when you're at STETHS in those days, if you're smarter, the girls will like you more, right? And if you're a cricketer and you're a sportsman like Olympian Ian who can blaze through the out of the block, you understand me? You figure that in those days that if either you're gonna be a top athlete or a top academia in school. So that was my thing, is that I couldn't, after I realized I couldn't compete at the athletic level, I turned my attention to the books and like, you know what, I'm gonna try to stay on this trajectory. So that kind of wanting the attention to be one of the top students, I think also in those days help to influence or spur, your passion to succeed.
All right. So that leads me to another question that really going to continue on the previous question. So we know that you was a good student, smart. You already know that you was doing well from, first form, second form, third form, fourth form. What did you do different? Tell us now, what were you do different to say that I want to get ahead of the other kids?
I think again it's just competing. So I didn't do well in my in first form, second form, or third form. Don't get me wrong, I didn't do well. So let me go back. So in my first year in STETHS, and I sure I'll be careful because I will watch this and check the records. I probably in the first class, I think I probably came about 15 out of 21. 15. 15 out of 21. So remember, you have first place, second place, third place, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. At 15, I came in the first year at STETHS. And I remember going home and they said this wasn't good enough. Because I'm up here for school fee and the buckle torch and everybody are complaining and they have to start buckle down. And I went from that, I remember from that first form at STETHS. After that, by the time I got to 9th grade, I became like a prefect or something like that. I was like second in my class in 2 years later. And after that, I don't think I ever came anywhere. I was always in the top, at least the top 4 or 5 students in the school throughout my time. But, so for me, it was more, how do I get better? It's just trying to work harder, just trying to know that I don't have all the answers, but if I want to work hard, I can figure some things out.
What I really was asking you, did you do extra studies at school, at home?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How did
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mostly at home. Mostly at home. And mostly at home. I think most of my extra stuff.
At the time, did your mama give you enough light? Because I know when I was bored and the light got to turn off at a certain time. So
No, I don't have a light issue because when I was at STETHS in my early days, to be honest, up until about 9th grade, I was still traveling on the bus going back home. And it was still back to church. It was still home sweet home. So you just stay up late and you just turn your lamp up and you work. You understand me? And again, I just never like when I come. I never just didn't like to be in a position where all of a sudden, you're 15 out of 21 in your class. So just extra work and going home with a family who knows that if you don't get smarter, you're gonna be selling some cows and you're gonna be weeding grass with somebody else. So that was like, you gotta do better.
All right, thank you. Over to you, Ian.
Okay, Dr. Cecil. This question is gonna come to you from your own book, your own page, your own literature. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But your motto, man, your motto. Failure is not an option. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, and for me is this. So I believe strong. So if you know, for folks who know me well, know that I am very, very, very spiritual. Not religious, but spiritual, right? I strongly believe that there is a calling and a destiny for each man. And the only way you can get to that call and destiny is to understand that the one time that we should have failed didn't happen. From a spiritual standpoint, being a Christian, you hear that Christ came and died in Christmas season, and he died for us and he's risen. So that one failure, that one debt caused me to realize that there's no need, there's no failure in my book. What I like to say is that all of my journeys help have always been a path to a new direction. So even though I might have a temporary setback, it's not a failure because I'm learning something from it, right? And I think what happens to most people sometimes, they tend to get to a roadblock, and when the road is blocked, they believe they fail. So it's not an option for me. When I start making plans and dreams and vision, I don't put failure as one of the outcome. It's not an outcome. It might be a temporary stop if something didn't go my way, but it's not an option for me because I believe that even if this doesn't end the way it should end, that God is going to open the door for something else on the other side to work out better than I thought. So that's why my motto is it's not an option. And I guess, Ian, the reason I focus on using that, because if I put it as not an option, I'm going to work harder and longer to make sure I don't disappoint myself. And so I've always lived that motto. Failure is not an option for me. It's just that if something comes along the pathway that stopped the journey, I should be able to redivert. I should be able to redirect. I should be able to couple up and move in a different direction. But don't use that one thing. A lot of us have visions and dream. And what happened to us is that the first thing that comes in our way, the first obstacle that comes in our way, we think we fail. But sometimes that obstacle is only come to make us stronger, to make us bolder, to make us bigger, for us to press harder, for us to be more ingenious and find better ways to do things. And I don't and so that's why I've always lived with that motto that it's not an option for me. And it might redirect my plans, but it's not an option for me.
All right. So English was my poorest subject in school. I'll let people know that. I never do good at English. I was this shy guy, don't love to talk or anything. So it's surprising to have me on here, even asking you questions. But anyway, I'm gonna read from the side here. If I put it on, it may just cover you up. So I'm gonna read it out.
Okay.
And this is from Sherman Brown. And this is a strong statement. Okay. It
Okay.
said Dr. Cecil Wright is a game-changing educator who has profoundly transformed the lives of thousands of students and educators nationally and internationally. His story and his impact continues to leave an indelible mark on the lives of those who hear his message. I just want to say, man, that is a powerful statement in itself. So I want you to talk over that. And also, I'm taking you outside of STETHS now, where you are being an educator, a mentor, doing motivational speech, traveling the world from the Caribbean. You mentioned earlier, you end up even in Africa. Could you tell us about these mission, man, and your impact out there?
Well, I tend not to talk about my impact that much, and it's more just my living, right? Because it's I'm it's hard to talk about me and to kind of brag about things that I might have accomplished. But I would say this. I would say two things. All of those things probably is highly spoken of me, but I think what I'm most proud about is the fact that I really focus on doing good and living well, right? Doing good and living well. And the reason I say that is because as a young man who didn't have everything I should have had in place, there's a lot of people who have supported me, who have guided and have influenced me to pursue education as a path out. And I say this to myself. There's a lot of things they can take from us in, right? Folks can take away, they can talk about color of skin. Folks can talk about a lot of things. They could take out your car, take out your house. But once you have a level of understanding how to deal with people, how to help people, how to understand it's not only about you, but having others to do better. Somewhere along when you're trying to help others, there's someone, there's an energy, there's a supreme being behind you who's helping you to move forward. I spend most of my time, to be honest with you, either mentoring, teaching, giving back, or volunteering. And, I love to tell my folks all the time, I don't worry about what tomorrow holds because I believe that I should do so much good that when my kids and my grandkids go to a door and walk up, it should just open. When they go places and said, "Oh, I am Cecil's daughter," or Cecil's my dad, or my son goes somewhere and said, "Hey, Cecil's my dad," the door should just open. So for me, it's do good. And over the last 20 years, I have had mentoring programs. I started one of the biggest mentoring program in New York City. So we every year for the last 10 years, I've had over 100 mentors from all across the country, talking about doctors, lawyers, professors, teachers, policemen, athletes, come together in one large room. And the idea for that is to bring these people in there to do one thing, is to tell their story. Tell their story. And when they get together, I bring in hundreds of kids from all across New York City to sit with them. And those guys, they're not there to talk about their degrees or the car they drive or the house they have or the money they have. They're there for one reason. Tell this kid where you started. Tell the kid about your journey and how you got there. Tell this kid you failed. That's why, Ian, I tell people all the time, I have a severe speech impediment. I know. I have asthma. I can tell folks, my mom is a clean people house. That's my past. I tell people all the things I had to do to get to where I'm at. Because if young men and women can hear our stories, they won't believe it happened overnight. So when I came to New York many years ago, I drove cabs in New York for 12 years straight. The first time, drive cabs in New York to pay for school. So here am I getting my associate degree, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, driving cabs in New York at Boston or Baychester Avenue, Rowantown Car Service, driving cabs to pay for school. So the whole idea is so you do what you need to do to get where you need to go. And I knew that if I could finish school and earn my degree, so when I go places now to talk about my accomplishment or my influence being an educator, so I've been, I've taught at a college level, at both at the baccalaureate level, I've taught at the master's level, at the college level, taught at different institutions. I've been a dean before, I've been an executive director before, I've written books, but it didn't happen overnight. How it happened by me is keep on working, keep on pushing, and don't forget the people who help you to get there. I'm super loyal, and I know it's not a good thing. I'm a super loyalist to the folks who've always supported me. And I believe that if people support you, your jobs are paid forward. And that's why I have this mentoring program. That's why I do one-on-one mentoring. That's why when I travel to Africa, 2 times in the last 5 years, it's not only because I'm going on an spiritual mission trip. I'm going there to help build schools. When I travel to Puerto Rico, we've been to a huge church in Puerto Rico, St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands. Everywhere we go, it's about giving back, because I believe that lots of people had an influence, for me to be successful. So the whole idea, it's just give back, just do well. If where you can if you can into your community, on your reach, if you can continue to just give back and influence people, sooner or later, your cup would have so much, you never have to worry about what you have if you just keep on giving back.
Amen.
All right, Dr. Wright. I just want to show this book here, and I don't know how it is shown from my side, but on this book, everybody will see that it's your picture.
Yes. I have a copy here too.
Yeah, 21 Days to Freedom, The American Dream by Dr. D. Wright. I'm gonna ask, your thing is, you have run into the whole race ahead of me, getting into New York. And I just want to say thanks to you for putting forth this book of inspiration. This book, I've read the book, and it's a day, it could take a day to read this book. And it all depends on how fast you want to go through it. My daughter would have read along with me, I read and she say some stuff and follow along. But the book had really touched me in terms of your journey. So I don't know if you want to touch from the book or you just want to tell us, how did you end up in New York now? A little kid from Brucefield.
Yeah, I think we should start to Canada first.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
No, because he said New York, and he got to New York, but he have to tell us how he get there. So
Right.
So that's why I'm asking him the journeys. How did you get into New York? No, the little guy from Brucefield, St. Elizabeth Technical High School, into the banking world, starting, educating kids from an early stage. Now you're in New York having symposium and male empowerment and all that stuff. How did you get into New York?
It's funny. So I was working at Workers Bank, and in those days, you understand that everyone want to come abroad. You know what I mean? I honestly believe that if you get to the US, the streets are paved with gold. And I remember one of my buddy and one of my best friend, two good guys in the bank too. You guys don't know them probably. Donovan Simmet. I remember Donovan, and I had transferred from Mandeville to Black River. And I remember saying to Donovan, we're working together. I said, today, I think I'm gonna go to the embassy and try to get a visa and spend some time. And but the reality was that that's not it. How I actually came to the US when I went to the embassy, to the US embassy, and I applied, I didn't get a visa. They said no, and I didn't have the land and the house and everything to support you. They think you're gonna go away. So I went to the Canadian embassy. I went to the Canadian embassy. The lady said the same thing. She said, "No, I'm sorry, can't give the visa." And I was coming out very dejected. My face was down. And a lady just walked up to me and she said, "What happened, old lady?" And I said, "They just turned me down." She said, "You're such a nice young man. Why would they turn you down?" I said, "They turned me down." She said, "I don't have I'm going to my aunt in Canada." She said, "I don't have enough money. I don't have anything." They stamp it, denied. Then ask me a question. She said, No. She can't do that. I've been living in Canada for 62 years, she said to me. And I just come to get some stuff. She's Jamaican, to some stuff take care of the embassy. There's my little nephew over there. He's coming up with me. They can't tell you that. Come back with me. Stay right here. When I go up back there to the window, I bring your passport back to her. The lady went up. Ian, never met her before in my life before. Never seen her. Went up with my passport and said, you have to give him the visa also. He's going to come stay with me. I've been living in Canada for 60-something years. I want to bring them up so they can see what Canada look like.
Man.
The lady checked my passport and they said to me, come back. Like they said, come back in like 2 days. I'm like, this is like a miracle. So I went back to the bank and I said to Ginger called at the time, I said, Ginger, tell the story, and said, that these guys said I must come back in 2 days for the passport. They started laughing. I said, yeah. So I was at the bank, the phone rang. At the time, the bank manager, Mr. Curry, answered the phone and said, Cecil, there's a call from the embassy for you. Answer the call. They said, come back in 2 days. And I'm going to believe it, I'm going to go up there, pick up the envelope. They stamp the passport and give me 6 months in Canada. So that was it. So I took it now. I went to Canada. So when I went to Canada, same time I went to Canada, my girlfriend at the time had moved to New York. So she's in New York and I'm in Canada. And I'm like, okay, well, if she's in New York, I'm in Canada, I'm going to go to New York. So I remember writing a resignation letter. Those are the days in the banking system in Jamaica. I'm not sure if it's still the way it is. You could take what's called a leave of absence. You could be off for a couple of months, like 6 months or so forth. So I wrote a letter to my friend Ginger and said, Ginger, hear this. You keep this letter. When I get to Canada, if I get to the US, you can hand this letter in. So you hold on to the letter, right? So left the letter, went to Canada. I was in Canada. spoke to my girlfriend in New York and said, listen, I want to get here. She said, I don't know how I'm going to do that, whatever it is. And this is where my dad came through. I called my dad. He worked something out. They get me across the border, some guy into Detroit. Once I got into Detroit, I then took a Greyhound bus straight to Manhattan. So here am I in Manhattan. This was probably, I don't know what time it was in Manhattan, exactly in terms of night or day. But I remember coming off the bus in Manhattan. When I got off the bus in Manhattan, I standing outside. I remember going to buy a little coin. You drop in there those turnstile, because I was supposed to take the bus, the train to 241st Street on White Plains Road. I remember that. So I buy the token, drop the token in there, and I remember I said, "Oh, I forget to call Ginger." I remember went back, get some quarters, called Ginger at the bank, collect, and said, "Ginger, I'm calling you from 34th Street in Manhattan." He said, "Stop playing, Cecil." I said, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "You can handle letter in." He said, "What?" I said, "I'm not coming back." I said, "Can handle letter in." He said, "Cecil, stop playing." I said, "No, I'm good." I told you, I said, "If I get here, I'm going to make it." I said, "Don't worry about it. Just hand the letter in." So I hand the letter in, and that was it. And, so that's how I actually got to New York. And, from there, the rest is history.
All right, Dr. Cecil, I'm going to encourage people to get this book, because anybody read the book may have question for you. But I'm going to ask you a question out of your own book. I'm going to read just a part that is it okay, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, anyone who want to go ahead and get my book is on Amazon. So if it's on Amazon, if you go, just type up 21 Days of Freedom. It's right there. It's an easy read. It's something you can read in probably, as Ian said, in an hour, in less than a day, a couple of hours, you'll be finished breezing through it. But go ahead.
And not just 21 Days to Freedom, the American Dream. I like that part of it.
Right.
All right. So inside that book again, I'm not the best person with reading, but I have scratched some line, and I don't know if you guys can see, but it didn't highlight it. I just used a little pencil that I had and put some line through it. And just a little paragraph here I take out, and I'll read it. It said, they had the wrong suspects. 98% of the people are detained that I met had families and had come here with good intentions. All they were trying to do was to change their status. However, rather than considering that an act of good measure to be productive citizens, it was used as a tool to detain decent people. And in the process, families were destroyed. What do you mean right there?
Well, the story about 21 Days to Freedom, which is the book, was so everyone know if you come here illegal, you are wrong. You broke the law. If you broke the law, in every jurisdiction there is a penalty for the law, right? And so I was detained. I was detained for 21 days when I got here. So here I'm in the U.S. I had my bachelor's degree. I was in my master's degree. I was married. At the time my two beautiful daughters and my wife were doing well, and then I was home one day and there's knock on my door, and this was immigration. They came and scooped me up, and they was like, "Okay, well, you're here, your status didn't change, and you're here illegal." So they locked me for 21 days. So he had somebody for 21 days. So I've never broke the law. I had a bachelor's degree at the time. I had my master's degree at the time, my final semester master's degree. And so I'm detained. So here my New Jersey detention center sitting there for day 1, day 2, day 3, and all the way up. And somewhere about the 4th day I was there, I said to myself, I wonder if I'm here for a reason. So I started to interview other people. I started interviewing everyone. So I get loose papers. I was walking around interviewing people. So at the end, I had about 135 pages of handwritten notes of all the other detainees. And at the time, keep in mind, in my block alone, about 37 men was in there. It was a huge detention center. Hundreds of people were in there. And I had the information on all these guys. And the reason I wrote that particular thing there, because all the guys I interviewed in there, These guys are guys who came here just to make a difference. These guys didn't come here because they're illegal or come here because they're criminals. They came here because this is the land of the free. And there's something wrong. If you look at our immigration system, the way it's set up is that for students who have the money to come as international students, and most of those students happen to come from Northern Europe, other places, when they get here and get to the US, they come in as F1 visa, as international student, or B1 visa, international student. And they come here and they run off and they stay. And they can spend time and they can stay in school and convert their visas. But a guy who come from, what call it, from the South, from the Triangle, from Mexico or from Honduras or other places, when those guys come here from South America, when they come to South America and come across the border, they're also illegal, but they don't have the same privilege. I can tell you, I interview guys when my 21 days are detained who were medical doctors, who were professors, who own gas station, who are honest, hardworking guys. And all they wanted was just to be free in America. And what the system does is that they're easy prey because they have a family, where they live, where they work. So they become easy prey. So that was a challenge. So that's why I wrote this, is that all we wanted was a chance just to be free in America so we could go ahead and impact the world and change the world. And so it was a difficult time because I felt that what was happening is that the immigration system was simply using all the tools that they had at their disposal to find decent men who were just trying to save their families and detain those men.
All right. So I'm going to go in the book a little bit more. And people, I'm not going to take nothing else out of the book. So you want to have this book, you go buy this book. But another part that touched me, and the reason why this touched me is because I have kids. I have 2 little girls, all right? And inside of your book, you said, all right, what should I tell my daughter? What excuse I give her as to why I am not waking up with her on her birthday, basically, right? Should I tell her that I was detained because of the government failed to send me a notice to appear in court? Should I wait until she is 18 years old to explain the hypocrisy of the American immigration laws to her? Or should I tell her that her daddy might be deported in 2 weeks? And that's a question. I did not know where others might stand on my decision, but I had to lie. I called her on the morning of her birthday. Madison, I said, I am sorry, but I will not make it home. I am on a very important business trip. I promise that as soon as this business is over, I will be home. She said, okay, Daddy. She replied, I love you. I said. I quickly hung up the phone and broke down in tears. Explain that part.
That for me was probably my toughest day. Well, I mean, there were many tough days, but that was at that time my daughter was just about 8 years old, and I remember specifically that it was January 2nd. They had picked me up December 26th after Christmas, the Boxing Day, the morning of Boxing Day. Christmas had just passed. It's my 26th, and her birthday had come, and I remember doing all the stuff, the legal stuff that went through the system, and my wife running around being a U.S. citizen trying to figure out what's going on with me, where I'm held. And when her birthday came, it was tough because I had to make a decision. So one of the things that I'm very, very big on is my family values. So I don't miss Sunday dinners at all. I just don't do it. That's why I tell Ian I could interview at 6:00. It's dinner time on a Sunday. There's some things just important that my family sit together. And one of the things I don't do, I don't miss my kid's birthday because I've never had a birthday till my wife gave me one. So there's some things I just don't miss. And I started from very early. So I was going to miss my daughter's birthday and didn't want to tell her. So I remember calling her, and it was tough because I had to make a decision. If I tell my daughter that, I'm detained. I don't know how she's going to take it. If I tell my daughter, that I might not come home, I might be deported back to Jamaica. I was going to take it. So in that moment, I made a decision and said the best thing I'm going to say to her, I'm going to tell her that I'm on a very important business trip. And when it's over, I'm going to come home. So that book you're actually reading is funny because that book was not meant to be sold. The 21 Days of Freedom, the American Dream, was not meant to be sold. I wrote it as a documentary of my journey here, because too often we don't tell our stories to our kids. Too often our history is lost. Our history is misplaced and misinformed. So I wanted to document something. So if one of my daughter's kid grow up 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 100 years from now, and end up being the president of the United States of America, or end up being the mayor, or become known in any field, they can understand where the history came from, that their grandfather or their great-grandfather did this. So I wrote the book not to sell it, but to keep it as a story so people have it to read. So that was meant, that's why there's so much personal little stories in the book, really about my life, because it was meant to be a historical part of my journey. But that particular part you read there, Ian, was one of the toughest day in my life. And honestly, as you're reading it to me again, and I've read this book several times myself. That part always touched me, because it's I remember I'm going through the whole emotions of sitting there and determine on January 4th what this phone call is going to be, what I'm going to say to her.
Well, just want to say to you, it touched me, and reading the book, and I basically was like, I'm living your life. The fact that I have kids, and how does daddy communicate this message to that child? It is challenging. How does daddy, who don't want to lie, have to lie in terms of making the best decision from behind closed doors? Basically,
Behind
you'll have
bars.
to.
Behind bars.
Yeah, I don't know how to go into the bar, but to be there, But what I love is that the way that you were able to document others' story, and they were willing to share with you. So actually, they saw you as a leader there. So I could see, where you had stand out among those guys that was detained there with you too, and you had captured some very interesting stories. As I read the entire book too.
Well, Ian, it's a lot more stories than that, to be honest with you. So I captured story for 37 Men that would have made that book just a quarter of that book. And that book could have been 200 pages easy. But it's funny. So I am there, and they realize that I'm interviewing men. And they came and removed me from the general population, put me in a single cell, and took all of my writings from me. So I was what's called a shoe. They put me in the shoe. So I was separated and put in a cell separately just because I was interviewing other men. So there's a lot more stories, and I wish, and the reason why that book ended up being so short, I didn't want to. I just wanted to, so after they took those pages from me, 100 pages from me, and I was in the shoe for 2 days because of my asthma, and I had some constipation issue. They moved me out back in the general population, and then I went and get some paper that didn't have the detention name on it. If the name is written on the piece of paper, you can't use it. It's a regular paper. So a guard go to the library and get me this cartridge paper, and I use the cartridge papers, and I start rewriting the story. So that's why the book have those few stories in there. But there's several great men I met in there, and I tell you, great because not only because they were detained with me, but great because of their own principles, their values, what they stand for, and they only came to this great country because they believe that if they got here, they're going to help to change the trajectory of their own families.
All right, guys. So as you hear from the man himself, our Dr. Cecil Wright, you guys will see the reason why you have to go and get this book. However you get it in your hand, I just say you need to read the book because it captured a lot in the few pages. Even though you said there's much more to be told, I think you may have to come with a second book. But anyway, I just want to close this little piece off before I turn to Ian to say that, man, I don't know if you hear this song, God Favors Me. And, when you just talk about the embassy and this lady who been in Canada for 60 years, there's no way they could have turned you down now again, you know. So even
Right.
though the enemy would have said, hey, you ain't leaving Jamaica. You still the boy from Brucefield staying here. But God would have come through in making you be favored by this elderly woman. And that was what came to me, man. God favors me. So God favored
And
you, man. You know, you're a blessing, you're inspiration. I'll just turn you back over to Ian.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Unfortunately, I have read the book, so I got a whole different perspective from what Ian talked about. So, there's plenty of things that caught my attention in the book. So we're gonna I'm gonna spend a little time on it, but I'm not gonna read from the book. So one thing that caught my attention, the book takes 7 years to write, right? So that alone is a milestone. Um, why did it take you so long, or you were just doing it in your free time? Why did 7 years? What was the point for it taking it that long?
no, the book was written a long time ago. The book was written a long time ago. The book was written within a year after it came out. I wrote
Okay,
it down. It took that long to get published because it was meant to be a private book. It was never to be sold. It was meant to be a family history book. But
okay,
when the big challenge came in with this topic about immigration and how all these people are coming across the border and how they're doing this and how they're doing that, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. And the other thing also is that here's what happened too. Some other folks know my story, right? And I believe even though I was well accomplished and I have, I was a U.S. citizen and I'm traveling the world and I'm giving speeches, there's always a back of my head that somebody said, who does he think he is? We know he came here legal. We know he was detained, right? So the best way to disarm people from thinking they have something that's private about me is to make it public, right? Because you can't use something against me anymore that I just made public. So for me, it was just get this book out there, help to calm some of these issues where people is talking about all these black and brown people who are coming here, that we're coming here to destroy the world and we're evil people, when most of us are only coming here to do good. So that's why the book was published 7 years later, because of all the crazy stuff that was going on with immigration.
okay, awesome. All right. Well, thanks for that clarification. So we're going to stick with this number 7, and we want to talk about your first 7 days. how how you was looking at this whole process. And so it's going to be a two-part question because you know where I'm going with the 8 day. So just explain to us now the mindset at the time, the first 7 days. What were you thinking?
So the first 7 days I was lost. I wanted to go home. I told my wife I cry like a baby. I tell her every day I'm not gonna be a prisoner in another man's country, but I can be free in my own country. I have my master's degree. I can go back home. I can teach. I can do this. And she insists that listen, you need to stay here because I can't raise these two girls by myself. So the first 7 days was a wreck. It was just a disaster. I didn't eat. I mean, I'm a skinny guy. I became a lot more, I don't know what's going on with my mom and my wife. It was a disaster. And somewhere along the line somewhere around the 8 day, I think there's something about the new beginning. There's something about the 8 day. I woke up on the 8 day and it's like a flash came on in my head. And I said to myself, what if God had me here for a time like this? What if God has sent me here to open my eyes to something? And I remember sitting on the bed. The bed number was B14 was my bed number. I'm sitting at my bed number and I turned to the guy across from me and I was 14 and opposite side it was alternative 1, 2, 3, like this. And he was across from me in the concrete bed. And I turned to him and I asked him, why are you here? And he started talking. And right there and then I said to myself, I don't think I was here. If I get to Canada by divine intervention, because highly favored, there gotta be a reason why now I'm here sitting in this room for these 7 days. And I just started interviewing people. And to be honest with you, every single day I would have people come sit by my bed just to be interviewed. Want to tell their stories. Want to tell their stories. And so much in that when my wife called me and tell me, "Oh, you're coming out," I cried. I'm like, "No, not yet." Because I felt like I was not only was I getting nurtured, but I felt like I was helping to uplift people's spirit while I was there, so that they can feel that there's hope, and capturing their stories and plan to tell their story on the outside was motivated.
All right, awesome, awesome. So I want you to tell us what Psalms 35, Psalms 30, verse 5 mean to you during the time when you went through this turning point. If you can remember.
Well, I listen. Here's what I can tell you is that my faith has always been the cornerstone of who I am. Right? My faith, my belief, my belief in God and how God has kept me, right, has always been where I find my strength. So during those days when I was, so confined and didn't have anything to turn to, my belief in God, the fact that He brought me this far, my belief in God that my mom being a single mother, my belief in God that that I had the significant speech impediment but still became deputy head boy. My belief in God that I was the first person in my community to work in a bank, right? That was important. I was the first person in my family, to get a master's degree. All of these things that I was accomplishing wasn't because of who I am, but because of what God has inputted in me. That He has something bigger for me. So it was all about my faith. And I really locked into Psalms 35 at the time to say, this is where I'm going to stand and nothing's going to let me down.
All right. So just to say what Psalms 30, verse 5 reads, I know everybody might be wondering what is that, but everybody hear that scripture that man, this scripture here bring you through so many dark places. It said, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning." And I could see where that Psalms, give you that faith and to give you that point that he was looking for. Um, just gonna touch on one more point. I really wanted to, talk about that 4:37 a.m. that morning. Kind of going back a little bit from the beginning of the story, but you know, 4:37 a.m. just you know, just early in the morning. There with your wife and family, and you just what give us a quick version of probably the quick version of what was that. I, I guess it's a story, it's an experience, it's a lifetime change, but that's what that moment. I know that was the really was a dark place, and I can't imagine that, you know, you know, you know. You tell it. I can't. You.
And I'm telling you, man, it's if live in a basement apartment, have always have uh, always been up late reading, get a master's degree. You have your wife and your two daughters there, and all I heard in the morning was a real bang, like boom, 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 boom on the door. And yeah, the door has a little peephole like in it. Like you go there, and I just peep through, and when I look, I saw somebody's face, but the face looks unfamiliar because the light there is a motion light. So once you come to the door, whatever. But I realized that the person has like they're strapped, like a bulletproof vest on there. And I said, police, police. I'm like, police? So I'm there and I said, open the door as we're coming in. And I opened the door. And when I opened the door, the next thing I know, I was just thrown to the floor and handcuffed. And then my wife came out and she said, what's going on? And she just said, we need, are you Cecil Wright? I said, yes, I'm Cecil Wright. And I said, all right, we need who's in the house with you? They came to the house. They looked where they had to look around. They saw my wife and my kids lying there and my mom lying there. And they said, where's your passport? And I said, my passport? My wife said, why? What did he do? It's not him. And they said, where's your passport? All of a sudden, the guy saw the ICE. It was the police. It was ICE, the Immigration Service System. And they came and they, handcuffed me. And what's funny about all of this is crazy. And I don't know if I refer it in this book or some other interview. So when they came and they handcuffed me and they put me in this cargo van, huge cargo van. In the cargo van, there's also chains, big metal iron. So they put the chains also around your ankles and then hook that to the metal and then put you on another thing. So you're sitting there, your hands are handcuffed here, but your feet is also handcuffed to the floor. And I'm telling you, it's so my mind goes fast. I'm thinking about all this stuff, right? And it's crazy because if you understand how serendipitous this is, in the sense that what you're seeing is actually the same way in which we came from Africa in chains and shackled to a ship. I am now in an experience where I'm being shackled in a van the same way as my foreparents were being shackled and came to the green land that we helped to build, right? We forced to build. And here I'm being shackled for someone who never had a crime, who never had nothing. In my life, I've never been involved with anything. All I wanted to do was a chance to become a man and to take care of my family in the greatest place in the world. And here my 4:30 in the morning, man, been driving around all around the Bronx, all around Harlem, picking up other men. And what was tough about it, to be honest with you, we were picking up men who were black and brown men. That's what we're picking up. That's what I saw. I didn't see us pull into neighborhoods and picking up people from other Asian or European countries that came here who were other status. What I saw were we picking up black and brown men who had an accent and who looked like me, and they were being shackled just like me. And those men we all were taken to 26 Federal Plaza on the ground. My wife didn't know where I was until 2 p.m. that afternoon before I got a chance to say exactly where I was. So it was one of those days in my life that you don't remember, but also, that you would never forget, was also one of the days in your life that becomes the biggest motivator for what I do every single day, is to do good and live well. Do good and live well, to make sure that my shackling at 4:30 in the morning doesn't go in vain.
Thanks for that, Doctor. So we know that you're a New York resident. You've been living in New York for so long. I know you've been to Manhattan. You pass in this building, 26 Federal Plaza, Manhattan. When you go back there now, as the man you turn out, what do you think of? What goes through your mind if you ever, I know you must at some point, yeah,
Yeah,
go
you
back.
know what? I'm more connected to. I feel more pain when I drive past the detention center in Elizabeth, New Jersey,
Okay.
than when I pass Federal, because and here's what happened is also it's and not everyone has the courage to do it, but I encourage people to try to do this, to take your pain and make them your joy. Right? Take your pain, make them your joy. Take your weakness and build on those and make those your strengths. Because what happened, if I take all the anguish and all the anger and everything else that I went through, right, when I was detained for 21 days, it would have stifled my growth. It would have muffled me. It would have got me in a position where I'll be depressed. and dejected, right? But I've used those failures as a way for me to motivate me and to say, I want to make sure. That's why when I get a chance to speak at immigration forums, I do so. When I get a chance to speak at colleges, I do so. When I get a chance to give back, I do so. I'm using the negative as a motivator for me to do more positive things. So I don't see them as a negative when I pass those places. I still have the feeling, the gut wrenching feeling of being locked behind those bars, but I use it as a motivator to continue to press on.
Okay, awesome. So what would you say to people that's been through similar situation, different circumstance? I know you use your negative and you turn into positive, but but for some people it might be a little bit harder and challenging. What step you think you would suggest that someone could take to get those past disappointment and past failures away behind them?
Well, well, faith is a big thing. Faith. You have to have faith in something, right? And I think a lot of times. So there are a couple of things. I think people need to really understand the legal perspective of where they are. So if it's an immigration situation, get an attorney, right? Get a good attorney. Figure what's going on. That you need to work on. I'm not an immigration lawyer and don't understand all of the legal ramifications of what people might do or can't do. So I cannot advise people legally, but I'll say if you're have an immigration status, get an attorney, get a good attorney. And there's several of them, even in our own STETHS network. There's several attorneys that went to STETHS that we know of that you can always talk to them, consult. There's always a consultation. You can get consultation to get help with that. So get an attorney. It's the first thing. But I think overall, though, here's where I rest my hope lies is on my faith. And I say to this is that all of us have to find something that motivate us and understand. And that's why stories are important. That's why, Ian, your story coming from Montego Bay is important. Ian, your story with JB is important. Is that we got to realize is that the more we tell our story, it inspires people to continue to work towards getting better at what they do. So one of the things I've always done, even though I was illegal at the time, I've always gone back to school. I never got myself involved in any drugs. I've always stayed focused on getting my education. I drive cabs at night and pay for school because I knew that if I could educate myself, it had to change my life. So I'll say to folks, if you're a young person in this country, one of the things that you should be doing is staying focused and getting either a trade that you can use or a college degree they can use. But you got to focus on something. You cannot expect, right, to walk with duck but fly like eagles. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You can't get up every single day and dream of becoming something when I'm willing to work for it. Right? So you have to have that passion. And again, take small steps. I said to this, I'm going to give you my last point on this and this question you asked me is this. Don't worry about home runs. And Ian, in this case, don't worry about hitting a six, right? Just get a single, right? Don't worry about hitting a four all the time. Get a double. Because here's what I'm pretty sure of is that if you can get on base in a baseball term, if you get on base, there's someone that's going to bounce you over. Well, to most people is that they never get on base. They sit down and wait for other people to get them on base. I say to you, get on base, get a trade, go to school part-time, get a certification, get something that can show that you want to do better. And the more you aim to do better, I guarantee you, there are folks out there who's going to help you to push you forward. But just get on base. But start small steps and don't compare yourself with anyone. Before I became a doctor, I was a cab driver. And I love to tell people that I'm a proud cab driver, car 39, round town car service. Because when they have issues now with their kids going to college, or whether people who know me now who want to talk to somebody who was a cab driver in the Bronx for 10 years, guess who they call? I get paid to tell you about how to change your life. I get paid to tell you exactly how you can do it. So the idea is this. Don't worry about where you are. Don't worry about who's ahead or who's behind. Start where you can and keep on working. And God will give you the tools you need to move forward.
Amen. To God be the glory for that. Well, that I think that's good enough for the book. I think that I know anybody that watching this program, the we could vow that this book is great. I read it on my Kindle, over the past couple of days, and so it's good that you did, different version. I know, paperback is good too. Thank you for that signed copy. It's going to go to my collection. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to get one more question, and then you let Ian um, summarize the day. But I don't want to get past this. Your 1998. Just want to bring you back a little bit. You know, that moment in your life. I don't know if it is a turning point, but if it's not, you could tell us what was a turning point in your life. But this year, just tell us about your best friend Tony. That back in 1998. How much that affect you and how much that motivate you.
Yeah, so my best friend Tony, most people know that growing up was killed. He went to Newell Secondary High School, and I went to STETHS, and he was a teacher. I was a banker. First year, he just got his job. A couple of months in, I just got my job, and he was killed by a student. He was killed by a student who thought that had some kind of beef and wanted to get liquor, and they end up killing Tony. So when Tony died, a lot of things happened when Tony died. A lot. This is a guy who we plan to change the world together with. This is someone who who um who was always there with me. We did. I would say this: a good friend of mine who always said she choose her sins. Right. This is a guy who, yeah, I chose this guy to be my confidant, my friend, my everything. And when he was killed, it shook me up, shook my belief in God for sure. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. There's no way God could kill a good man when all these evil guys are out there. It doesn't make sense. That shook me up. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, so we're young. But for me, I knew I had to leave Jamaica at that time, and I left. And that's one of the reasons why I had gone to the embassy to get her there. But Tony was and still is my inspiration. He's still someone who I know if he was alive and see the things that I'm accomplishing, he would have been my right hand man all along the way. I would have been his right hand man along the way. So that was a huge time in my life where I knew I had to change my surrounding, not because it was bad, but I wanted to get a chance where I could get more resources to do more good. So that was, once Tony died, I'm like, I gotta leave this place. I gotta get to America where I can do more to do good. And that was my push.
All right, amen. Over to you, Ian.
You're muted, Ian.
Yes. Well, and it was really good listening to you here. I must say to my viewers, probably they wonder every week Ian looks so tired, burnt out. But I tell you, Dr. Cecil, I'm burnt out on a
You
Sunday.
should be.
My Sunday, if I tell people my Sunday, and I'm gonna tell you, sometimes it's important to hit some sticks too, but my Sunday, I would get up. I still love the cricket, man. To this day, I'm
you
still
playing
playing.
Sundays?
So I leave on a Sunday. Yeah, I play a whole day of
No,
cricket every
but
Sunday that I do this program.
I normally see you commentating rather than playing.
No, I'm commentating.
Okay.
I'm playing. I'm a jack of all trade, man. So when nobody get to showcase me, and I'm hitting some runs and I'm taking some wickets, because nobody else hold the camera. So so even though I'm commentating, I'm on the field. So some days you need to hit the six. I'm just gonna tell you a little joke here. I remember one year we were playing Kingston Walk. I represented St. Elizabeth, and me and Kung Kong and all these guys, Carl Wright,
that's my cousin.
went up to St. Yeah, well,
Yes.
you say you come from around Brucefield,
Yeah.
Vineyard, and Mountainside, and
The
the whole
Colruyt father and
Arlington.
my father are two second
So,
cousins.
well, that's the best batsman I've seen in my days at STETHS. All right. You know, I'll say to anybody that is one of the best batsmen I've seen is Carl, and he was my
Right.
captain during my years. And I remember, man, going to St. Catherine. Carl actually make 100 in this game too, you know. And we had a game to win. Last ball, 6 runs needed. I don't really bat much at STETHS, but if you give me the bat and the ball
Because
is in
it
my viewpoint, it will go. So I don't know if it was Carl who out or Omir right, but one of the right out. And JB, 1 ball, 6 runs to go. JB said, "Tall pace." I went out there, Dr. Cecil, and I tell you, this man threw up a little slow ball. When that ball released, man, I think that ball reached me long time. And when I swing, that ball is nowhere near me as yet. I could almost go back over the bat and tap it from my wicket. That ball hit my wicket. I could almost cry.
no, listen. I thought you were gonna tell me that you hit a six.
No, man, my wicket went back. And you know, when I walk out, JB said, "Tall pace," like he's asking what happened. And you know, the next thing that he said, he didn't wait till the respond, you know. He said, "Okay, guys, we have one game next week
That's
and we have to win that one." You know, he knew what happened. It was one swing. It's either hit or miss. But today my team needed me today, you know, and I actually hit a six and it felt good.
Nice.
So, you know, so some days, you know,
yes,
not every day you're gonna win. Put it that way. Not every day you're gonna hit the 6. But sometimes you hit it when it is most needed, because we still had other games to complete that. I think we probably have done exceptionally well during that season. But today, I went out and I hit a 6, felt good, man, and bring back some of those moments. So when I come here on a Sunday, I'm tired, man, I'm burned. But it's because this is something that we're passionate about. Me and Ian, we do this from a passion. And we tell people, work in your passion. You know, something that you're passionate about. And definitely I've seen where what you're doing, it's something that you're passionate about. You're traveling the world, you're educating people, and you know, I'm just gonna move and level up where you know you are the founder of the Youth Male Empowerment Symposium, you know. And what I just want to know, man, what do you say to these guys, you know, who just need guidance when you go out there?
You know, here's one. So let me talk about our role first. For your role, Ian role, and my role, is this. Just tell your story. That's what it is. These guys don't care about the car you drive, and they don't really care about the fact that, you know, I probably have given, you know, 200 speeches in the US already. I've spoken in front of 6,000-7,000 people. I've, you know, it's, you know, they don't want to hear all the stuff. It's unimportant to them. Here's what they want to hear. They want to hear your story. If you want to impact lives, tell the real story. Say who you are. Tell the challenges that you have had. Tell the issues that you face, and tell how you overcome them. Because here, what happened? You cannot. There's no way you're going to inspire someone until they know you. You can't have impact on anyone until you can get involved, right? So the first thing you need to do is to break down that barrier of who you are. Tell them your story. You know, I'm from Jamaica. I have a speech impediment. I went to STETHS. I have this. Because your story, here's what happened. You're going to reach people, Ian. You and I and Ian will reach people that other folks won't be able to reach. We have our own audience. What most people have an issue with sometimes is that they try to play in another man's audience or trying to play in another man's territory. I know my audience. My group of folks that are inspired by my story are African-American males, right? Or Caribbean males or immigrant males who want to hear a story of men who came here, persevere, who conquer and succeed. That's what they want to hear. They want to hear that story. But that story cannot end with a victory. The story has to end with you in the starting block. How did you start? What did you do? So when I go there, all I do every single day is tell my story. And tell my story and look people in the eye and tell them is that I'm here not because I'm smart, definitely not because I am good. It's because of two things. It's because of grace and the men and women who supported me, people who push me and influence me and motivate me. Those are how I got here. So when I talk to kids, I say to them, is I want to let you know, when I see you, I see me. I see a kid who might be shy now. I see somebody who might not be sure where they're going. But I can tell you one thing. I had a guy who worked with me who helped me to get to where I'm at. I've done this, I've done that. When you tell your real story, people are connected to your story, and your story can make a bigger impact than you trying to just share your glory. Tell your story before you share your glory.
All
Amen.
right. I'm happy that you have done exceptionally well with sharing your story. You have taken it to another level in that you put it on paper, man. You have a book here that all of us can read. Both see me and Ian have dig and torn apart some of the insert that you had in there and bring it to
Yes.
the platform tonight. And we say you want to get the rest of it, you got to go in the book for yourself, man. We can't take it and bring it out to you guys.
Yep. There's
That-
something in there for everybody. I get
yeah,
something out of it. You get something. The other man gets something. Everything, everybody gonna find something that connect, that resonate with them. So that's the good thing I love about books. That
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
you
Yep.
can
Yep.
really say book.
So there's also, the hero of this story, right, in this book is my wife. You know, um, I can say two things is, when I see how she held the fort, and how all the things that the faith that she had, her faith brought me over. I mean, I was done. I was like, I want to go back home, and how she held the fort, connected all the dots, talked to everyone she needed to talk to. Making sure that she reached out to every senator that she knew, every councilman that she knew, every attorney that we knew, every family member that she knew. And then she knew who to go to get all the money she needed for a bail bond and other things. She did everything that she could possibly do to make sure that her husband were able to stay here to raise his daughters. So, I say this all the time, is that, behind every great man, people say there's a great woman, but I got to tell you, behind every great man, there's a bunch of great women. And I can tell you for sure, my mom and my aunts and my wife have always been a big push, right? And even the nurturing and the mentoring stuff that we men do and learn how to deal with people, a lot of those things that we get those inspiration from those female figures who we see every single day, how they overcome, how they fought, how they held their head up. And I tell folks all the time, I can do a lot of talking, and my wife does the same thing because she's a preacher. But at the same time, I still believe that she is a hero of the story, because if she didn't hold her head down, I guarantee you, I would have packed my bag. I'd be out in no time, because I'm not going to be a prison in another man's country where I can be free in my own country.
Yeah. Well, that's where I was gonna get. In terms of behind every successful man, there's some strong women that really they pilot it, man. It's like you're just co-pilot sometimes. In my own life, and sometimes
I'm a passenger.
I think sometimes just a little co-pilot who does far less than my wife would have done. From way back in school to now, she shaped me into the person I am up to today's date. So I was gonna get down there in that sense, but just to say again, I was on that little topic there, because this is why we talk to like some of the athletes. A coach can do so much for you, really, in that
Right.
they can tell you everything, do everything. They get you right to the very starting block, but they can't run the race for you. And definitely at some point you got to find yourself. So in you doing all this motivation, speak and everything, empowering the youth and all, how well do you see these students receiving and really finding their own greatness?
I can tell you two things. My partner and I, my best friend here in the U.S., a gentleman named Sherman Brown, right? And Sherman and I, we co-founded Aim High Empowerment Institute. So you can see we do, and Sherman is one of the top motivational speaker, and I would say literally in the world, right? empowerment coach in the world. And he's my best friend. I met him in college here, and we co-founded Aim High Empowerment Institute together, which provide mentoring guidance for students from all across the world, right? And I'll say this, and the question you asked me is, how's it making an impact? I can tell you two things. One, if you look at some things that we're experiencing, I literally right now have a couple of people who offer scholarship back to kids who are in the AMI program now, and those are people who I met 5 years ago, and now they're police officers. I have police officers, I have lawyers, I have bankers, I have teachers, I have vice president. So when I look back and see, is it working? Absolutely yes, because I see these guys every day, and these are the guys who are coming back now in our mentoring program and giving back because somebody gave to them, right? So I see every single day, and a great example is this. I currently have a gentleman who works in my office, who I met 6 years ago in high school. He applied to college, got him into college. He finished college, started his own business, real estate company, and now he's back working for me, but also he's also back mentoring other students, right? So you see that this thing is working. You also see how it's working because, when Barack in 2008 launched My Brother's Keeper, which is important, the Bible said, I think specifically in Proverbs 27, verse 17, it says, iron sharpens iron, man sharpeneth man. Here's what we do is that we can understand that as great men in this country, especially men of color, is our sole responsibility to not kill each other, but to sharpen each other. And when you sharpen one another, what happens? You see it down the road. When I make an influence on a young man in the street, or a young man who I meet along the way, I am making a better man for somebody who might end up being the teacher of my daughter, or being a mayor, right? Or being something that I've helped to shape. So the whole idea is for us to continue our uttermost best to make sure that we can give back. And the more you give back, is the more you realize it's paying it forward. I see it every single day. We have in AMI Empowerment Institute, and my partner Sherman Brown did an excellent job making sure he stayed laser focused on that, and game changer for what he does. And but you can see the number of men and women who came to Aim High who are so successful now, and who are now volunteering Aim High Empowerment Institute, giving back to their local communities and at the international level. So it's working.
Man, see, for me, and you go back to STETHS, you go back to your community. For me, I really am big in agriculture. I have a degree in agriculture also. That was my first passion. Coming from South St. Elizabeth, you basically raise on the farm, whatever it is. And I just came up with a pretty good statement in that you plant a seed, man, and in a year or two, you may have a field. And simple, the same thing, same principle. You may just plant one corn, but you got years of corn that could plant a whole hectare, not even an acre.
I think I'm gonna have to tweet you, Ian. If you plant a seed, may have an acre, and tweet it and just say from Ian Thomas.
Yeah, man. It is serious, and that's what you're telling me right now with the program, because it's like, you take one student and you input into them your story.
Right.
And mentorship, and that would have allowed them to go out there, walk in their greatness, and return to the program now mentoring many also. So I'm really proud of you on that sense. But as we see, time is going. We've been here a while, so I'm gonna jump to another segment. And
another segment. I thought we're about to wrap up.
But we can wrap up without this part, man. Couldn't wrap up. All right. What happened is that lately we know we had an election in the STETHS Alumni Association, and which I recently became a member of that, and you being one of the vice president, newly elected, and I just want to know, with all that you have done to the educational sector, empowerment, male empowerment, your institute and everything. I just want to know, 'cause it's good to have you as the vice president. So I would also want to know your vision for the alumni association.
So, Ian, I think that's a good question. I think first, I probably want to say is that of the last 25 years, the Alumni Association, STETHS Alumni Association National, has done an excellent job. It has been on the very, very strong and excellent leadership. I think those who have gone before us are actually giants. I can see where, people like Zonia Watkins and Carlene and our current president, Donovan and Maureen and all those folks who have been there from day one. I think they really set the stage. They really has provided a platform for us to build on. And I think this new executive board, with our leadership from our president, Donovan Wilson, is at a new level. I really believe that we're going to continue to build on what they has laid for us. So I think the vision that we have right now is that there's a strong vision for new membership. There's a strong vision for us to get organization to add new people in terms of getting new members, especially those who left STETHS in the 2000s. We have the numbers are very disparaging when you think about the number of folks who left STETHS in 2000 up to 2020, 2019 who's not a part of alumni association compared to those who left beyond that. So there's some gap there that we need to work on. So one of the focus for us is to increase membership. But the other focus also is for us to get organization in a position where we can give more back to STETHS. And I think that comes with increased membership. If we can find a way to have more membership in the organization, we can do more. We can raise more funds. We can be more fiscally responsible. We can be able to offer more scholarship. We can be able to reach more people. So the idea for us is to continue to build those two gaps. At a personal level, though, where I would like to see us go from a personal level is for us to get to a stage where the association continue to really build on this team concept, to give more back to the alumni itself. So we have a large number of people who live in the US and live all across the world. And one of the things that I would love to do is to get those people interconnected. So we don't become this fraction organization, but we become one body on the one heading so we can build and have a way for further reach. So the way we're going to do that is, for instance, you have the JB brand, right? You have the JB brand. Why should it be a situation where the association might have a conversation somewhere in the near future and say, hey, are you willing to have your JB brand on the STETHS page, right? And how does that impact your outreach? Is to make sure other people who have other businesses or have other professions, to make sure we promote those people. Think about the number of opportunities we have if we can collaborate. If you have a job or opening your company and they're looking for someone, we should be referring people and say, hey, this person has a job. So we want to give back more to the association, making sure that we can help each other. We're in a country, we're strangers in a foreign country. And if you don't forget what the Bible said, that Psalms, but when remember the days of Babylon, where we sat down by the rivers, right? That's where we are. We're in a position where we have to unite ourselves. And I think for me, the main focus is get us united, make sure those who are in North Carolina and South Carolina, right? And in Florida and in Georgia and in Texas and London and Maryland, make sure that they're all connected into organization, because the more we're connected is the more we can do. And I think that we're onto something big. I'm excited, Ian, because everyone's committed. Our president is committed to the growth. I think those who have served before, who's acting as ex officio and helping to see organization, they're committed. And I think we have some great years ahead of us for the association.
All right. You want to hear something coming from
Yes.
Ian and Ian?
Yes, sir.
All right. You want the formula for winning new membership?
Talk to me.
All right. Question for you. If I should take away your cell phone right now, how difficult would it be for you to function?
Very difficult.
Okay. Tell us the impact that cell phone has on the new generation right now.
I think it's massive. I think technology has a massive impact. Instagram, Twitter, all of the tools they have is very impactful in making sure to stay connected with them.
All right. So I think you have your answer right within there. For the younger generation, I tell you, the emails ain't gonna work that much anymore.
Right.
People gotta start getting out there. You gotta go on their ball field. They're not playing the games we used to play. The cricket, they ain't playing no cricket again, man. In no road. They're not playing no soccer in the road like how we used to play. These guys, it's handheld game. It's sad to see them getting fat early, but that's where they are. So if you
Right.
can meet them on that play field that they are on, not that the one that we used to be on,
Right.
but the one that they are on, we're gonna be in trouble. And for these new kids, new generation, it's gonna be the Twitter, the social media, really, the TikTok.
Absolutely.
And if you can find them there, you're not gonna interest them. They have about 1 minute window or attention span. You ain't get it there,
It's gone.
you're in trouble. So I think that's the answer.
Yeah, and we're doing well. I can tell you two things. One, and I'll be 30 seconds on this one. And we have a group of folks who are very focused on growing the organization in terms of membership. So we have added some membership committee. And to your point, you're going to see an overhaul of our website coming soon. We have the STETHS alumni live every Sunday evening, which is hosted by one of our current students on campus in STETHS every Sunday evening from 8 to 9. And you also have, a YouTube channel that's coming, a Twitter handle that's coming, a Facebook that's coming. So we have a lot of things we're doing on the social aspect side to connect the new group. So you'll hear a lot more for that in the near future.
And it's working. That's why I tell you, that's it. You just got to keep it there. That's it.
Yes.
That's the answer, man. So, Ian, back to you again, man.
All right. Well, very, very, very interested night. Very, very, very interested comment. I've take some personal notes myself. I am a member of the STETHS alumni. I'm a member of the community. I am, just like a new member, I am looking and, trying to see how I'm still assessing to see how can I contribute something. I don't like to be a part of anything just to make up numbers, but at least that's the first step. You can't talk from outside, you got to talk from inside. So
Yes.
the first step is to get a membership. I would say to anybody that's a part of the STETHS community, even if I think that's the minimum that we could do is to pay $40 a year for a membership. Even if you can't participate, or even if you don't have the time, at least if you just look at that as a contribution to the school. Don't even look at it as a membership. So you know what? I'm giving the school $40 towards something because I know the membership will help in some way. So if you say, look, I'm too busy and I can't do it, at least just join a membership. I'm pretty sure you just never know. Emails are still out. Unfortunately, I'm better to get in touch with email, Ian, than social media.
It works, Email, to have an email list, it works. So don't get me wrong, but you got a channel also the other side.
Yeah. Yep. Easier for me. As I said, I am an email guy. I got different email for different things, and
These young guys, Ian, you know what these young guys do with the email? They use the email just to create a Google account or to create a Twitter account, or Insta. They use it just for that.
Yeah.
But for them going in and checking it, man, call it over. You better instant message them that they just see a quick pop. Okay. Respond or not, right here.
And the good thing is, for me, I know as a businessman, doing athlete management and stuff, I could be accessed from 10 different platforms.
There you go.
Right.
I got 3 business on every single platform.
Yeah, no, that's it. So you know,
And
it's
if you
just
make,
like
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying it's just like making money now. You have to have multiple stream of income. One ain't gonna hold it if you
Yeah,
wanna really live life.
you know.
Unless you find one, and you sit in the president seat for the next 50 years. You're good. Anyway, I'm back to you, Ian. Do you think
Yeah, yeah, no. So this is my final thought, yeah, and my final question. I was giving my thought, then I was going to give my question about the STETHS alumni. I said I just want to. I know there's a lot of members, people that's in the membership that's on here right now. I just want to say, look, I'm encouraged by what you guys are doing, and this, keep up the good work. I am obviously, as I said, with everything kind of standstill right now, with what's going on with COVID, I know that things will come together. I'm looking forward when I could able to come to the pen relays. I haven't been to the pen relays for the simple reason that my daughter's birthday is April 29th. And I'm in a tough situation every year. I've been trying to go to the pen relay. The last time I went to the pen relay is when she was born. And I haven't gone to the pen relay because her birthday always the day before, the day after. And I travel so much that it's very hard for me to travel to pen relays. I know I want to see connections and things like that, but when I know that I have to go out the country for the whole summer, so I'm not able to get it. But she's 18 right now. Maybe she don't want to spend her birthday with me anymore.
Very true. I can tell you that much.
So I am open to see what she has planned next year, and then we're gonna make that plan. But my final question for this great interview, I want you just to summarize what's the American dream to you. Just tell me in a short version, what is your American dream, or in your world?
Well, in my world is what I consider, do good and live well. That's the American dream for me. Do good and live well. I think all of us who come to the U.S. have a chance to make an impact, whether it's here or somewhere else. And so for me, the American dream is always do good and live well. If you can find a way to do good exactly where you are, do good in your corner of the world, do good back home, do good in the household in which you live. Take care of who you live with, make sure they're happy, take care of your friends and your associate. If you do good, you have a great chance of living well. So the American dream for me, folks love to measure houses and cars. I remember this. I can tell you one thing. When I bought my first new car, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a new car. And it's good. But after a while, that wears off. You get a new house, and those things wear off. But having a sense, a peace, and just a sense of giving back, and sense of knowing that you can go and just help other people to make their lives better. I think there's nothing more powerful in life for me than that. So for me, it's just do good, man. That's really the American dream for me. Just keep doing good, and if you do good, you live well, and hopefully by the grace of God, you live long, and that's important. But I want at the end of my journey, if somebody should turn over my tombstone and said, how did he live? Folks should said he did good and he lived well.
All right, amen. So before I let Ian close it out, this is the book that I'm reading right now. It's a very good book by Dr. Tony Evans. No More Excuses.
Yep.
And I've been in this book here for months, and I read it, and it's been making me a better man. And it's so just want to share this one here. All right, over to you, Ian.
All right, Dr. Wright. So Ian had actually prolonged this interview a little bit longer, and he had mentioned about COVID, and I wouldn't close it out without at least get your take on this. COVID, this pandemic is something the world have never seen before. It have shut down the entire world, near and far. Whether we like it or not, it will affect somebody who we know, somebody that is close to us. Sadly, many have shed tears in terms of losing loved one. Many have lost the very things that they have worked hard for, including their homes, their cars, you know, a lot of their assets, and so much more. And mentally, the entire nation is drained. You know, whether you like it or not, this pandemic have touched us where people are anxious, you know, they're uncertain about what is going to happen next. You know, they basically find it hard to just cope with the whole pandemic issue. It's basically overwhelming. That's what I would say. And I could not have asked a better person to speak on this than you, who have spent your years empowering others and just helping to guide them along. Just would have you talk to just anyone out there or audience who may just find themselves going through a tough spot, or even know somebody who is going through a rough time, but somehow being affected by this pandemic. Could you just speak into that for a little?
Yeah, and that is that's such a good question, because I think the pandemic has impacted us on all levels. It has definitely changed the way we think, the way we act, the way we behave. And I want to first talk about the good things out of it. I'm gonna give you what's called a sandwich effect for a second. I'm gonna give you some bread, some meat, and then give you some bread at the end, right? I keep
And
the
some
meat for the
water.
middle.
Some water. Even a
And
little
some
bit.
water. Did it. So here's what happened. This pandemic has caused a lot of people to become physically distanced but more socially connected, right? So, and I can tell you, because of Zoom, and I'm not zoomed up. People keep saying they're zoomed out, and I get it. But I've spoken to people who I haven't seen in years because of pandemic. Because now we can't fly to go somewhere. I've been on, especially in the Alumni Association, we have been on Zoom like every weekend with folks I haven't seen for years. So even though we're physically distancing, I've become a lot more socially connected to people. So that's good. And I do know that there are people out there who are hurting. There are people out there who are saying, what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen, but I think that one of the things that people can do to help get them through the pandemic is to be conscious about where they are. Find support groups, right? I can tell you, when I get together with my friends on a Friday night, or when I call we have what's called mental check-in. So Sherman Brown, my best friend, runs a program on a Monday night called Mental Check-in. Mental check-in for men. When we get together, mental check-in for men for 15, 20 minutes, it's a group of men from all across the country get it on this conference call for about 25 minutes. And all they're talking about what they're doing. Like, for instance, what am I doing in my home that's helping me to become successful? So I think what we need to do is to share what we're doing. Good example is that for me, what I do, I make sure the balance. I make sure that I spend time with my son. I make sure it's with my family. I make sure I exercise, make sure whatever you need to do to keep moving is important. So even though the pandemic is dire and is causing people to lose their minds, we have to find ways of adopting. Mankind have always adopted. We've always found a way to adopt and to change what we do. So if you can find a way to find a group that's helped support, any kind of group that you can get to be a part of that group. Group conversations do help. There's also other resources out there. So if people, they're in challenges and they need resources, if they're unemployed or they have what's called food insecurities, right? Which is, food insecurity means that somebody might be working, but they might be working out part-time, or they're currently laid off. So there are food banks. There are churches out there that provide food banks and provide places where people can get help. The only people who don't get help in this world are those who don't ask, right? So in this pandemic, you got to find a way to ask for help. Look for resources, right? Find a group that have to support you. If there's food insecurity, find a place you can get where you can go ahead and get food if you need food. There's also families who struggle with managing children because they are homeschooled and other issues. Well, if those are the cases, what you need to do in those situations, find out from the school district, are there areas in which there's group meeting, or can the teacher spend more time? The same tutoring that would have happened after school, can the tutor spend more time with your child one-on-one because they work from their home, right? So whatever you can do when you ask those questions. And my number one thing, just ask. If you're not asking the right questions, if you're not asking for help, is always difficult. The last thing on the pandemic where I think that we have to keep our eye on is that this pandemic is going to allow some people to be a lot richer while folks become a lot poorer, right? The gap is widening, right? That's what's happening. The gap is going to widen because those who have the resources can do more. Those who don't have resources can do less. So look for ways in which you could team up with other people to help to make sure you don't fall behind.
All right. That was a powerful one. As I said, I am happy that I had you here tonight, that I could ask such a question and get such a complete sandwich.
And some water.
With some water, with healthy. It's a healthy sandwich, not just any sandwich. So,
No.
it could be a little not a normal sandwich, but this one is a healthy vegetable packed.
Right.
But a question I want to ask a strong man now, Dr. Cecil, because all of us, we do have weakness too, in everything. And I don't think you have much weakness, but I'm just gonna throw this question.
Ask my wife.
I just want to throw this question in right at the end here. Is there anything that Dr. Cecil Wright wanted to do for a very long time, but haven't so far because it may just scare the hell out of you?
Yeah, a lot of things. A lot of things. Some are on the way, some are coming. And some is not because it really scares me. Some is that I don't have the resources to do it, right? And sometimes the pocket doesn't catch up with the vision, right? And that's always a challenge, a balance which you go first. So I can give you a good example is that for years I wanted to build a gated community, literally. So here's what happened. If you wanted to build a house, if you just think about building a house, it might take a couple of years, which is easy to do. And you might do it in 5 years. But if you want to build a gated community, it might take you 20 years. But things have to scare you. So now, in my mind, I'm so focused and locked into realizing that not because, if you're a farmer in, right? And we have about farming. I do some farming back home. You should know that. I want to tell you that I currently have a decent sized farm home. Talk about 32 acres, 5 acres of produce and cattle and all kind of stuff. And I go home every 3 months to put out my water boat, jump in a truck and run cows and run a big melon farm and cantaloupe and beetroot and you name it.
So why you not leave me down every man?
Right. So I don't want you to think that you're the only one farm. But the point I'm driving about I want to answer your question about dreams is that so in my mind is that things that people accomplish in 2 years or 3 years is good. But when you have a dream so big, you should know that some of your dreams won't take, you have to be patient enough. They're going to take you 10 years or 15 years. And those are the ones that scares us. But those are also the ones that defeats us, because sometimes when you see other people who are succeeding because they decide to build a 2-bedroom or they decide to build this little house, and you plan to build this, and all of a sudden you realize that you're not there yet. But don't let that hold you. Keep on pushing forward. So for me, is that some of the things that I have failed to do is that I have some visions that's not out there yet. I have some missions I want to accomplish, and I will get to it. And it's scary for other people. It scares me what I'm thinking of doing. But I believe that if Tyler Perry said, go build your own table. When you see what Tyler Perry did, where he came from, he built a whole community. When you think about LeBron James, what he did in building a school and taking care of thousands of kids, that's what we're talking about. You have to dream big. And for me, I have a lot of scary dreams in my head. And I don't know if they'll all come true. I can guarantee you one thing, that the man above is going to make quite a few of them come true.
Well, thank you for sharing, man. I just want to say it was a privilege to have you here on the platform. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know the viewers been inspired, they've been motivated, they've been uplifted, and I knew that this Sunday afternoon was gonna be a very good one. Both interviews went exceptionally well. I think when you add doctor to your name, man, it is a good thing. It's a good thing, and it's very encouraging to others. To even just to see that someone who have come from a little town as Brucefield have make it all the way into South Africa, travel the world thus far. When I look at the gentleman this afternoon, Dr. Ahmed, he's coming back from way back in Pakistan from a little community. They say Multan.
Wow.
So we realize that people coming from small little communities are able to make it out to the big world, the world of dream. You know, this America, the American dream. And you could have said that better. So we just want to say to all the people out there who are watching, to just know that guess what? People say the sky is the limit, but really, I don't say no limit. The limit is the limit that you put on yourself. We see people go way out in space. At one point, they never think that nobody would ever make it there. But
Right.
guess what? So it's a limit that you put on yourself. And once you are willing, and as you have said, faith is a really strong word, and it's believing in things that we can't see. You don't even know. You're just like, guess what, man? You go in the plane and they put on that parachute and everything. Just jump and believe it's gonna open. Sometimes you just gotta believe. You gotta have belief, and belief is powerful also. So with faith and belief, man, and your discipline and your work ethics, you can achieve greatness. And I really am proud of you, proud of your accomplishment, all that you have done, and proud of your leadership. And we look for big things here, the alumni group. So people, while we're here, if you haven't joined, you may want to seek out. You could reach Dr. Cecil Wright, also the vice president. And we're here, Ian and Ian. We're always here every week. We promise to just bring people who will educate, inspire, motivate, just shed some light on their journey. And as you say, tell your story.
Right.
That's basically it. By telling
Yeah.
your story, it
I
will
know that
educate.
we're wrapping up. Before I go, I want to just say thank you to both of you, man. I
Yeah,
think
the time, man.
you guys are the absolute gentlemen, and to invite me and to speak, and I appreciate it. And I can tell you one thing, everything starts small, so keep on doing what you're doing. I've always known that if you listen to Les Brown or any one of these guys, you always hear the story about the Chinese bamboo tree, right? A Chinese bamboo tree is a particular tree that, in many instances, um, it's a tree that actually grows over 100 feet, right? But it takes over 7 years for the tree to grow. So imagine you're going through ground every single day, you're pouring water, you see nothing coming up. It takes 7 years, but once it's spurt through the ground, I think it takes about 7 to 10 days to grow over 100 feet. The question is, did it take 7 years or 7 days? So what you guys are doing right now, to you, it might seem like it's just spurting. You're pouring the water, but you guys are planting a great seed. You are great alumni of STETHS. You guys represent yourself well, both at all levels, professionally and personally. I want to commend you guys for what you're doing. Keep up the great work, man. I'm happy to support you guys anywhere I can. And I'm looking forward to your support in the Alumni Association. We have some great guys. I just want to also recognize our executive board for the Alumni Association. Donovan, our other vice president, Henry, and our treasurer, Nadine. I say Henry's on there, so Nadine, Elaine, Belinda, Kay Dean, and all the committee members who are working. And I'm so proud to work with those guys, and I'm so proud to be on the You Guys show, because what you guys are doing, Olive and Junior also proud of what you guys are doing, because of you guys, that is how STETHS is going to continue to grow. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you both.
All right. Amen. All right, Doc. I would have actually say a prayer, but I think we're running out of time now. So may the Lord bless you and keep you in everything you do. And
Blessings.
all right, take care.
All right, take care, guys. Good night.